Chapter 477. Jiang Shangxin ran out to welcome Jiang Junling with a face full of joy. She was a completely different person from when she was in the house and guarded against him. Jiang Shangxin rushed forward and hugged Jiang Junling's arm. She said, "Brother, I called you before the wedding. You said that you couldn't make it because you had something on. You don't know how sad I was when I heard that. Ever since we were young, our relationship has always been the best. How regretful would it be if you didn't attend such a big event like my wedding? Do you know that? I hid in my room and cried for half an hour. Now that you're finally here, I'm so happy." Jiang Shangxin reached out to Jiang Junling and said, "Brother, where's the present? Don't tell me you didn't bring me a present." At this moment, Jiang Shangxin was just a little sister who was acting coquettishly and asking for a present from her brother. Every woman born in a rich and powerful family was born to be an actress. Jiang Junling took out a small box from his pocket and said, "Some time ago, I went to South Africa and had a good talk with the chief of the Wolf Spear tribe. He gave me this gift. I'm giving it to you. I'm giving it to you. I'm giving you a happy life." Shangxin opened the box and took a look at it. She exclaimed, "Red Dragon's Eye?" The red dragon's eye was a very rare gemstone. The shape of the gemstone resembled the eyes of the legendary red dragon. This kind of gemstone was like a family heirloom, but Jiang Junling casually gave it to his sister as a wedding gift. From this, it could be seen that Jiang Junling treated his sister very well. It was also possible that they viewed it with great importance and were plotting something big. Jiang Junling nodded and said, "It's just a stone. Men don't have much interest in this kind of thing. I know you girls like it, so I thought I owed you a wedding gift, so I brought it. I hope you like it." "I like it. Of course I like it. Which woman could resist the temptation of a gem? Which woman can resist the red dragon eyes? Isn't a military order too valuable?" Li Yun asked worriedly. She heard the subtext in Jiang Junling's words. Men are innately not interested in such things, so what are men innately interested in? Wealthy enough to rival a country? Or was it the power to overturn the world? Li Yun did not treat Jiang Junling as passionately as her daughter, Jiang Shangxin. She was more respectful and fearful of him. This young man's influence in the general family was astonishing, and he was someone who could directly influence the old master's decision. The Jiang family's investment in land in Africa was encouraged by the general's order. He even handed over the business in this area to Jiang Junling. Jiang Junling personally oversaw Africa and became brothers with the impoverished chiefs who were sitting on a treasure mountain. He gave them luxury cars, good wine, and everything they liked. The result of catering to their needs was that they were able to bring back carts after carts of their precious ores. The profits were astonishing. Now that Jiang Junling had used a red dragon's eye, Li Yun was truly worried. Everyone knew that Jiang Junling was a business genius. He never did business that was at a loss. What did he want to take from them this time? Beauty? Li Yun's body was a little restless at the thought of this. However, she was very clear that with Jiang Junling's self-discipline and strictness, he really would not do anything too crazy. Jiang Junling took a look at Li Yun and smiled. "Auntie, it's all right. We are all a family." The rest of the people stood guard outside. Jiang Junling followed Li Yun and Jiang Shangxin into the house. Shangxin personally brewed a cup of Mount Junshan's silver needles and placed it in front of Jiang Junling. She knew that Jiang Junling liked this tea. Then, she sat beside Jiang Junling, as if she was Jiang Junling's wife and not Jiang Zhuliu's wife. Jiang Junling looked at Li Yun and asked, "Auntie, how is the situation? Is there any news from fourth uncle?" Li Yun's face was full of worry. She said in her pleasant voice, "There is news, but the situation is not optimistic." What happened? Tell me about it." "I happen to be in Huacheng, I might be able to help," Jiang Junling said in a low voice. "We are all a family, we can't let outsiders bully us." Jiang Fengxing, this bastard, he actually wanted to kidnap Lu Chaoga with Qiang Longtan. Lu Chaoga was kidnapped and Fang Yan went to your sister's wedding to ask for her. I heard about this. Jiang Junling's eyes turned cold and he said, Fang Yan bullied the Jiang family. He will get his retribution one day. Yes. Who does things like this? Marriage is a big event in a woman's life, and a wedding is the dream that women look forward to the most. In the end, it was ruined by Fang Yan. Because of this, your sister cried for a few days. After the wedding, your fourth uncle and Qiang Longtan disappeared mysteriously. We couldn't find them no matter how hard we tried. You know your fourth uncle's character, he would more or less discuss it with me when he encountered something, but this time, he didn't discuss it with me. After that, Lu Chaoga came back. Your fourth uncle and Qiang Longtan didn't appear, so we knew that they might have been controlled by someone. Maybe this is a show put up by Fang Yan? Jiang Junling asked. I thought so too. But now that she is in Fang Yan's hands, what can we do? Aren't we just going to listen to what others say? Fang Yan's conditions must be very hard to accept, right? Brother, how did you know? Jiang Shangxin exclaimed with her eyes wide open. Jiang Junling touched Jiang Shangxin's head and said with a smile, I knew a long time ago that he has good teeth, 30%. Li Yun said. He wants 30% of the Longtu Group's shares. Jiang Junling nodded and said, indeed, it suits Fang Yan's taste. How are the shares of the Longtu Group being divided now? Li Yun didn't respond to Jiang Shangxin's gaze, she only looked at Jiang Junling sincerely and said with a smile, Zhu Lu is also tactful and is willing to transfer 49% of the shares to the Jiang family. But I thought that since his father is gone and they still have to live in the future, I made the decision to only ask for 30% of the shares. You have a good relationship with Shangxin. Can you speak up for Shangxin on this matter? Jiang Junling agreed with a smile and said, as an elder brother, I will not shirk from this matter. How can an elder brother and younger sister fight over the assets? Since Aunt has already thought of the distribution plan, then let's do it this way. Brother, thank you. Jiang Shangxin thanked him happily. But now, Fang Yan wants 30% of the shares. This huge sum. Are we going to give it to him or not? Jiang Junling didn't answer this question. Instead, he picked up the teacup in front of him and savored the fragrance of the Laojun tea. Jiang Junling didn't speak, so Li Yun and Jiang Shangxin didn't speak either. The house fell into silence. What do you think, Aunt? Jiang Junling looked up at Li Yun and asked. I haven't thought about it yet. I'm anxious. Luckily, the military order came. Li Yun looked at Jiang Shangxin and said with a smile, we will listen to the military order and make the decision. Jiang Junling held the teacup in his hands and muttered for a while, we still have to save them. How could a general abandon his own family? We will be laughed at if word gets out. I understand. Li Yun said. Then I will ask Zhu Lu to take out some shares. I will talk to him. Jiang Junling said. He put down the teacup and said, I will go out for a walk and meet my old friends in Huaqing. Military order, take care of your safety. Li Yun reminded him from behind. Jiang Junling stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Li Yun. He said, is there any place that the Jiang family can't go? Li Yun smiled and nodded. Of course. However, it's always good to take care of your safety. You are the lifeblood of the Jiang family. Even a scratch on your skin would be an earth-shattering event. Jiang Junling smiled and said, Aunt, you have to take care of your health too. Don't worry, I will definitely bring fourth uncle back. I believe in the military order. Li Yun said gratefully. Jiang Junling got into the car and left. Jiang Shangxin only walked to her mother when the convoy was far away and couldn't be seen. She asked, Mom, can he really bring my father back? Who can guess what he is thinking? Li Yun let out a heavy sigh. When facing the general's order, the other party gave her an immense pressure. She felt that it was hard to breathe. Seeing her mother's greedy breathing, Jiang Shangxin smiled and said, "He is getting scarier." Chapter 478. Longting Tower, Longtu Group Headquarters. Since his father, Qiang Longtan, wasn't around, Jiang Zhulu had been sitting in the CEO's office of Longtu Group for the past few days. Qiang Longtan was the well-deserved leader of Longtu Group. He was also the spiritual idol of nearly 10,000 employees in Longtu Group. Since the establishment of Longtu Group, he had led the employees to create one miracle after another. Qiang Longtan hadn't been to the company for 3 consecutive days, which naturally caused a certain degree of disturbance in the company. In particular, some of the senior managers who had a close relationship with Qiang Longtan kept calling the CEO's office and Jiang Zhulu's phone to ask about Qiang Longtan's whereabouts. Jiang Zhulu couldn't shirk the responsibility, so he had to stand up and take on the heavy responsibility. On the first day of work, he called for a senior meeting to explain to the public that his father wasn't feeling well and needed to rest for a period of time. Only then did the unstable wave of rumors settle down, and all kinds of rumors finally subsided. Jiang Zhulu was very busy. He never thought that being the leader of Longtu Group would have so many things to do. When his father sat in this position, he would leisurely drink tea, read quietly, go to work on time, and accompany his mother for dinner every night. Why did he have so many things to deal with? Why did he have so many decisions to make? Soon, Jiang Zhulu understood the cause of the matter. Even if he and Jiang Longtan were father and son, and he had inherited the foundation that his father had single-handedly built, Jiang Longtan's position was different. However, could he also trust the people that his father trusted? Could he also use the people that his father used? He thought so, but did those people think the same? They didn't dare to make decisions that should have been made by them, so they sent them to Jiang Zhulu to handle. They didn't dare to make decisions that should have been their responsibility, so they sent them to Jiang Zhulu. Everything was done by Jiang Zhulu, and all the decisions were made by Jiang Zhulu. How could he not be tired? Although Jiang Zhulu found the crux of the problem, he still didn't make any changes. He read all the reports that his subordinates sent him. He would give answers to his subordinates' reports. In this matter, they weren't wrong, and neither was Jiang Zhulu. Back then, his father trusted them, so he delegated power to them. Right now, Jiang Zhulu was walking the same path as his father. First, take back the power, then give it back to those who are trusted by him. Don't underestimate this process. It was a simple process that could win over the loyalty of smart people and let them clearly know who was in charge of the Longtu Group. Jiang Zhulu had already made preparations to take over. He knew that his father would never come back. Mr. Jiang, Luo Jibin, the head of Jek's research lab, would like to report to you the research direction of Fire Phoenix's second phase. Mr. Kai Mingliang, the chairman of Longxing Company, has come to visit. He wants to talk to Mr. Jiang about the 3-phase cooperation. Another Mr. Jiang came to visit. He said he's an old friend of yours. Wait, Jiang Zhulu looked up from the pile of reports in front of him and asked the confidential secretary, "What did you just say?" A Mr. Jiang came to visit. He said he's an old friend of yours. The confidential secretary, Jiang Liang, reported again. He was the secretary of the previous boss, Qiang Longtan. He hadn't gained the trust of the person in front of him yet. Therefore, he was still a little nervous when facing him, but he hid it very well. Seeing that Jiang Zhulu was very concerned about this matter, he said, "Mr. Jiang is drinking tea in the living room." Jiang Zhulu hurriedly threw the pen in his hand on the table, pushed the chair away, and walked outside. He said, "Take me to him." Jiang Liang didn't ask why. He turned around and led the way. When Jiang Zhulu arrived at the living room, he saw Jiang Junling sitting in the public living room of the CEO's office, drinking tea. There were a few people waiting to see him. They didn't know Jiang Junling's identity and were chatting with each other. No one paid attention to Jiang Junling and treated him as an outsider. Seeing Jiang Zhulu come out, the few people who were waiting quickly stood up to greet him. Jiang Zhulu nodded and smiled at them. He walked straight to Jiang Junling and stood beside him. He said respectfully, "Master, why are you here? If there's anything you need, just let me know. I'm familiar with watching, so it's convenient for me to drive to see you." Jiang Junling put down the teacup in his hand and said with a smile, "If I don't come to see, how would I know how much energy Jiang Zhulu has stored and how much ambition he's suppressing?" "Not bad. It looks like you're in a good state." Jiang Zhulu was startled inwardly, but he didn't show it on his face. He said with a smile, "I've let Master see a joke. My father isn't feeling well, so I came to help him deal with some side work. The real important matters are still up to my father to decide. Master, do you want to come to my office?" Jiang Junling got up and said, "Then let's go and have a look." Jiang Liang didn't know Jiang Junling's identity, but from Jiang Zhulio's attitude toward him, he could tell that this person had an extraordinary background. Hearing that they were going to the boss's office for a discussion, Jiang Liang quickly led the way and helped open the office door. After waiting for Jiang Junling and Jiang Zhulu to come in, Jiang Liang immediately went inside to make tea. After he quickly finished serving them, he quietly left. Jiang Junling looked at Jiang Zhulu and said, "Julio's mental state is very good. This is the quality a man must have to achieve great things." Jiang Zhulu forced a smile and said, "I'm not afraid of Master laughing at me. I can pretend in front of others, but I have to tell the truth in front of Master. I don't have any confidence right now, and I'm still hanging in the balance. My father's life or death is unknown, the company's undercurrents are surging, and it's extremely unstable. Rumors and slanders are bewitching people's hearts. Things keep happening one after another, and I can only force myself to not let this frame fall to the ground with a loud bang. The Jiang family won't fall. There's still Zhulu. Longtu won't fall either. The Jiang family still exists." Jiang Junling softly comforted him. Jiang Zhulu was very excited after hearing Jiang Junling's attitude. The burden on his body was immediately lifted. Although he had put on an act and given away 49% of the shares with a wave of his hand, it was still unknown whether the Jiang family would accept it or not, and whether they would protect the Jiang family after accepting it. Now that an important figure from the Jiang family had stood out and said that the Jiang family and Longtu wouldn't fall, it meant that they had accepted his kindness and kneeled to him. From now on, the Jiang family would be a subsidiary of the Jiang family. Of course, they would be a subsidiary after he and Jiang Shangxin got engaged. However, the Jiang family had a lot of autonomy at that time, and they could bite back at the main family at any time. Now that the Jiang family was in danger, they could only rely on the Jiang family. They would bite whoever the Jiang family wanted them to bite. They were just a family of dogs. "Thank you, Master." Jiang Zhulu stood up and bowed deeply to Jiang Junling. Don't underestimate Jiang Junling's simple words. He had saved the Jiang family and Longtu. Jiang Junling didn't hide it or beat him up. Instead, he gave him such a big gift the moment they met. Whether it was sincere or not, he was sincerely grateful to Jiang Junling and the Jiang family. At this moment, Jiang Zhulu was in a state of isolation and helplessness. Even a little spark could warm his ice-cold chest. Jiang Junling held the teacup and drank his tea. He smiled and said, "We will be family in the future. You don't have to be so polite." Jiang Zhulu returned to his seat and asked Jiang Junling, "Master, why did you come to watching this time?" "To settle things." Jiang Junling said, "Bathing in the Huaqin pool during the chilly spring, the hot spring water was smooth and smooth. Under the shade of the maple trees, there was a hot spring that was emitting white mist. The spring water gave off a strong smell of sulfur. It was obvious that it was natural underground spring water. The October maple leaves were as red as fire, and the red leaves that covered the mountains and plains were burning like flames. Layer upon layer, like the waves of a sea of fire, spreading to the surroundings. Pieces of red leaves fell into the pool, becoming decorations for the white medicinal soup. Red and white alternated, forming a beautiful and moving picture scroll. Splash, the young girl in the spring gently shook her arms, and the water splashed. The green mountains were full of emotions, but the girl in the pool was even more so. The maple leaves were beautiful. The girl was even more beautiful than all the maple leaves on the mountain combined. The young girl stood up from the pool. The light muslin on her body could hardly conceal her curvaceous figure, causing her perky breasts and flat abdomen to be faintly visible among the green trees and red leaves. It was a great advantage to all the tree gods and grass immortals in this world. A black-clothed woman silently walked over and draped a white cloak over the girl's body. The girl took the towel and wiped the water from her hair. She asked, "What's new now?" Qin Xiaofeng has been buying up film and television stocks. Today, he spent 1.3 billion renminbi in one day. However, this method of making quick money through insider information is still a small trick. It can't be relied on, the black-clothed woman replied. Xiaofeng has a good sense of smell. Fighting Star Corporation is about to go public, which will affect the stock market of the entire film and television industry. Wantong Energy's chairman, Mr. Wang Tong, wants to visit you. They still aren't willing to give up the opportunity to represent Chaoyan Energy. Tell Wang Tong to go to Huacheng and talk to Lu Chaoga. Only she has the right to decide. I won't interfere, yes. I'll talk to Chairman Wang, the black-clothed woman replied. Jiang Junling went to Huacheng. Huacheng, the girl stopped drying her hair. After thinking for a bit, she smiled mockingly and said, Fang Yan just went to Huacheng, but he already couldn't wait to chase after him. Just how low does he feel that he's in such a hurry to regain his lost confidence? The black-clothed woman stayed silent. This was something the girl could say, but she couldn't say. The girl continued drying her hair and said, I should also go to Huacheng to take a look. I've been away for 3 years, I really do miss it. Chapter 479. The hardest thing in life is to make a choice, Lan Shanggu said with a sigh. Blue Mountain Club. Lan Shanggu stood at the entrance of the club with a calm face and a gentle and happy smile on his lips. But inadvertently, a trace of deep worry appeared in his eyes. This made the assistant beside him very puzzled. This young master had single-handedly facilitated the cooperation between the Lan family and Chaoyan Technology. As Chaoyan Technology's Little Flame products sold well all over the country, the Lan family, as one of the 3 major agents, also made a lot of money. He was originally the focus of the Lan family's training. After this successful investment, he could already be confirmed as the next candidate for the Lan family's helm. Shouldn't he be enjoying his carefree time? What else was there that made it so hard for him to let go? Lan Shanggu was indeed very worried, and this kind of suffering couldn't be poured out to outsiders. The 2 big brothers, Fang Yan and Jiang Junling, wanted to negotiate, but chose the Blue Mountain Club as the venue. Others didn't know the relationship between the Lan family and the Blue Mountain Club, but it was impossible for Fang Yan and Jiang Junling not to know. Originally, Lan Shanggu wanted to pretend that he didn't know about it. If they wanted to negotiate, then let them talk. But now that both sides had greeted him, he couldn't hide anymore. On one side was a famous young master in the capital, one of the most core figures of the Jiang family. Even with the Lan family's current status, there was no way to compete with such a giant. On the other side was a new upstart in the business world. Although he didn't show himself, and even the financial circle didn't know about his existence. However, as one of the most important partners of Chaoyan Technology, how could Lan Shanggu not know about the relationship between Lu Chaoga and Fang Yan? How could he not know about the relationship between Fang Yan and the Qin family's eldest daughter, Qin Etian? How could he not know who the real boss of Chaoyan Technology was? This pretty boy who only knows how to be soft-spoken. A dragon and a tiger, Lan Shanggu couldn't afford to offend either of them, and he didn't want to offend either of them. But, why did you drag a small character like me into the fight between dragons and tigers? If you want to fight, go to Sword Peak. If you want to scold, go to the top of Shishia Mountain to scold. Why did you drag me into this? Did the poor deserve to be bullied by the rich? Poor people also have dignity, okay? His heart was filled with sorrow, but he still had to force a smile. Lan Shanggu felt that he was a prostitute in a nightclub who drank with the customers with her bare chest and thighs. While she was cursing Fang Yan and Jiang Junling for being unkind, a luxury car stopped in front of the clubhouse. Lan Shanggu quickly walked down the stairs and opened the door for him. He smiled and said, "Long time no see, young Master Jiang. You haven't been to Flower City for a few years, right?" Jiang Junling shook hands with Lan Shanggu and said with a smile, "I don't dare to come here often." By saying that, young master, you are criticizing our Flower City for not doing a good job in receiving guests. This time, we will learn our lesson and treat you well. We will let you have a new understanding of our Flower City. Lan Shanggu purposely changed the topic and said with a smile. How could such a small trick escape Jiang Junling's eyes? He held Lan Wudu's hand and smilingly said, "Wudu, you and I are now estranged. In the past, when we were in Beijing, we would still go out to drink and chat when we had nothing to do. Now that we've met, you're starting to set an official standard?" Lan Shanggu's expression changed as he smiled and said, "Young master, if you have time, I can send you an invitation right now. How about we two brothers have a good drink and chat today? I've already rejected everyone else's appointments. Whoever dares to compete with me, I'll dare to fight with them." Jiang Junling laughed and said, "That's right. You've always made me feel regretful in my heart. We used to be good friends, how could we lose you all of a sudden? It's good now. I like your boldness that you're not afraid of anything." The two of them entered the clubhouse's top-notch Lanshan private room. Other than an old man in sunglasses who followed them in, the others automatically left. Lan Shanggu's assistant helped arrange it. A beautiful girl in palace attire performed a tea ceremony on the spot. A cup of fragrant, colorful tea was served to the guests before the beautiful girl in palace attire bowed and left. Lan Shanggu made an inviting gesture and smilingly said, "I know that young master likes to drink Lao Jun tea. When I go back, I've asked for all the treasures of our old man. Young master, have a taste." Jiang Junling picked up the teacup and took a sip. He smiled and said, "This year's new tea was picked before the first rain before the Qingming festival. Only the tender tea core was taken, and the virgin leaves were washed and dried. Then, it was hand stir-fried. The leaves, heat control, and stir-frying techniques are all top-notch. Together, it's a peerless product. When I'm free, I'll visit the old man and ask him for a cup of good tea to drink. Then the old man will be so happy that he'll have to show off his tea skills in front of you." Lan Shanggu smiled in response, but he was secretly vigilant. Jiang Junling wanted to visit the Lan family's old man. He wouldn't believe that he didn't have any other intentions. However, the Lan family now had Chaoyan technology as their cash cow. It wouldn't be easy for them to make the Lan family change their ways, right? Jiang Junling held the teacup and looked at Lan Shanggu thoughtfully. He said, "I came 20 minutes earlier than the agreed time because I wanted to have a good talk with you. It's hard for everyone to meet each other now. It's even harder to sit down and have a good talk." Lan Shanggu knew that he couldn't avoid it anymore. He looked at Jiang Junling and said seriously, "Young master, what do you want to say?" "I'm listening." "You can't just listen with your ears. You have to talk with your mouth. Think carefully with your heart and brain. Valley, I know that you're working very well with Chaoyan now. As the saying goes, blocking someone's path to wealth is like killing their parents. I definitely won't do this kind of thing. What I want to talk to you about is that our Jiang family is preparing to invest a huge amount of money and resources into Longtu. We want to make Longtu's territory bigger and stronger, and become a world-class energy company. Are you interested in joining in?" Lan Shanggu fell into a short silence. It wasn't a blatant attempt to rope him in. Instead, it was a more brilliant way to divide him. Jiang Junling knew that it was impossible to completely separate the Lan family from the alliance of interests that Lu Chaoga had helped Fang Yan to create. This was because there were huge benefits involved. Their future development was limitless. Even the Jiang family was very tempted by this. However, if he was allowed to earn benefits from this alliance of interests, and if another huge benefit was placed in front of him, what choice would the Lan family make? Jiang Junling's thoughts were very simple. He couldn't rope the Lan family in for his own use. He also didn't want the Lan family to be used by Fang Yan. This way, Jiang Zhulu wouldn't have to make enemies in Huaqing. Longtu Group's situation would also be much more relaxed. Li Yun reminded Jiang Junling to be careful in Huaqing. This was because they knew very well that the current Huaqing was no longer the Huaqing of the past. If Fang Yan was willing, he could do many things that would harm Jiang Junling's actions. It was precisely because he understood this that Jiang Junling was so angry at Li Yun's reminder. Sometimes, the truth really hurt one's pride. Faced with the bait that Jiang Junling threw out, Lan Shanggu was indeed a little hesitant. Although they were now the agent of Chaoyan technology, would they still be in the future? If they no longer had any value, would they be kicked away by Chao Yan and Fang Yan? If they invested in Longtu Group, they would become an important partner of Longtu Group. Everyone would share the glory and disgrace and work together. Who dared to say that Longtu didn't have any chance? Moreover, even if Chao Yan became the world's number one, so what? Who could say that the world's number two company didn't make money? After Jiang Junling threw out this bait, he didn't say anything else and waited patiently for Lan Shanggu's answer. Lan Shanggu's mind spun like lightning, constantly considering the pros and cons of various options. After a long time, Lan Shanggu finally made up his mind and said, "Young master, this matter is too important. I have to discuss it with my family. I think they are more mature than me, and their foresight is also more far-sighted. They will give a more accurate judgment." Jiang Junling's eyes trembled slightly, then returned to normal in an instant. Although Lan Shanggu didn't say anything definite, he had already rejected Jiang Junling's suggestion in person. In other words, between him and Fang Yan, he chose Fang Yan. Moreover, he followed Fang Yan with a resolute and decisive attitude. This kind of person, if you can't be a friend, then you can only be an opponent. I understand. Jiang Junling nodded and said. Then, he held his teacup and drank his tea, no longer saying anything. Jiang Junling didn't say anything, and Lan Shanggu didn't say anything either. The sound of chattering and the fragrance of tea was quiet. But the air in the room was about to freeze. Time flew, and when it was almost time to meet, Lan Shanggu stood up and said, "Young master, please wait a moment. Young Master Fang is here, I'll go welcome him." Jiang Junling didn't reply. Since Lan Shanggu had already made his choice, it was reasonable for him to give Fang Yan enough respect at this time. Lan Shanggu didn't wait for Jiang Junling's response, and pushed the door open and walked out of the room. When he stood at the entrance of the club again, his mood was a lot better for no reason. Lan Shanggu felt his heart calm down. The most difficult thing in life was to make a choice. When you make a choice, many things will suddenly become clear. A GMC limousine stopped at the entrance of the club, and Lan Shanggu quickly walked down the steps. After opening the door for him, he smiled and said, "Young master, Jiang Junling has been waiting for you for a long time. I thought you stood him up and wouldn't come today." Fang Yan jumped out of the car first, then turned around to help Lu Chaoga get out. Only then did he greet Lan Shanggu and said with a smile, "I'm a little late. Chaoga has a bad hand, so I've been doing the grocery shopping and cooking these days. How was the braised ribbon fish today?" "It was a little salty," Lu Chaoga said. She was wearing a silver suit and a sky blue silk scarf around her neck, and the beautiful bow just happened to cover the wound on her neck. Her fluffy hair was combed into a phoenix tail. The phoenix tail was slightly curled, making her neck look slender and delicate. Her snow-white chest made people gulp involuntarily. That heart-shaped water drop pendant was the happiest jewelry in the world. "I don't want to use too much salt to cover up the fishy smell," Fang Yan explained seriously. "What do you want to eat tonight?" "I'll make you a ribbon fish soup. It'll be a little lighter, but I want the freshness of the fish." "Okay," Lu Chaoga said. And the mapo tofu we had this afternoon. No problem. Fang Yen held Lu Chaoga's arm and said, the prices have gone up again. Let's go in and ask for some money to buy groceries. One side was trying to bribe people, while the other was talking with his girlfriend about how to cook and buy groceries. Who was the real winner? The answer was obvious. Lan Shanggu laughed and said, we'll have to ask for some money. We can't afford to ask for less. But he was thinking that a pretty boy like Fang Yen was already a winner in life. Chapter 480. Under Lan Shanggu's lead, Fang Yen supported Lu Chaoga into Lan Shan's private room. When the old man in sunglasses saw Fang Yen, he raised his eyebrows slightly and his expression tightened. Jiang Junling sensed the strange expression of the old man beside him and glanced at him, then turned his gaze to Fang Yen. Fang Yen supported Lu Chaoga to sit down and greeted the old man in sunglasses sitting opposite him, saying, I haven't seen you for 3 years. Are you still in good health? Very good, the fisherman said. He looked at Fang Yen and said in a sincere and caring voice, is your grandfather well? Fang Yen smiled and said, if you want to know whether he's well or not, why don't you go to Swallow Dock and have a drink with him? I don't dare to go. The fisherman sighed softly. You know your grandfather's temper. If I go, he'll definitely scold me badly. I've lived for so many years, and this is the only face I can use to fool people. If it falls on the ground, how can I pick it up? Also, your grandfather doesn't want to see me right now. Old Fang has always been strong and likes to compare himself to others. He's in his twilight years, but he has to send off a black-haired person. He doesn't feel good about it. Why should I go and stab him? Fang Yan's expression was solemn and he showed unprecedented respect to the fisherman. He said, you are my grandfather's old friend of many years. The people who understand him the most are you old friends. My suggestion was too frivolous, please don't blame me, old man. The fisherman waved his hand and said, I don't blame you. If I wanted to, I would have done it long ago. We each have our own standpoints, and we each serve our own masters, so we won't quarrel when we meet. When I feel like I'm about to leave, I'll go see old Fang and have a good drink with him. I'll listen to him scold me to his heart's content. That's the real joy then. I hope that day will come later, Fang Yen said with a serious expression. Jiang Junling didn't feel jealous at all when his subordinates were fighting with the enemy. He listened to their conversation with great interest, as if he were one of them. Lan Shanggu also felt that the atmosphere was really strange, but he tried his best to keep a low profile and reduce his presence. After summoning the beauty in the palace dress to brew a pot of Longjing tea, she said to Fang Yen, young master, I'll go out to entertain them. Shall we have dinner here tonight? No need, Fang Yen refused. If I eat here, you'll have to sit with me. If I busied myself with eating, I felt disrespectful to you, the host. If I keep thinking about what to say to you, I won't be able to eat smoothly. There's still leftovers at home. I'll go back and cook a few dishes. He wouldn't eat out. You don't have to leave, just be a witness. Lan Shanggu nodded and said, young master cooking personally, it's very romantic. Fang Yen wouldn't let him leave, so he could only find a corner to sit. Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yen and said with concern, just now, the fisherman said something. The white-haired person sending off the black-haired person, this is the greatest tragedy in life. The dead are gone, and the living are like this. Nothing is more sad than to ruin one's life. Fang Yan's eyes trembled slightly as he looked at Jiang Junling and said, this is indeed a sad and despairing matter. You clearly feel that you can control everything, but you can only watch as your loved ones die in front of you. If it's possible, I hope that this will only happen once in my life. What I've experienced has been experienced by others before, and in the future, there will be people who will experience it. If it's not someone else, it will be you. Fate is really a mysterious thing. Once the sickle in the hand of the Grim Reaper points at you, you can't run or hide. So, living like this is only one aspect. The key is to be strong, to accumulate virtue and do more good while you're alive. If you do too many bad things, the Grim Reaper's sickle will naturally hook onto your neck. Fang Yan used his own experience to point the spearhead at Jiang Junling. Those who do too much evil will bring about their own destruction. What happened to me will also happen to others. This kind of tragedy will never be the last time it happens. If the Jiang family still doesn't know how to stop and keep doing such immoral things, the Grim Reaper's sickle will definitely stretch onto their necks. At that time, even if you regret it, it will be too late. Jiang Junling nodded in agreement and said, "That makes sense. Filial piety, loyalty, trust, propriety, justice, integrity, and shame, if any of them are missing, it will be difficult to support a person. Accumulate virtue, do more good, and do less bad things, then there will be peace at home and abroad." Jiang Junling retorted bluntly. The hidden meaning in his words was that if Fang Yan hadn't done too many bad things, no one in his family would have died tragically. If he still acted willfully and recklessly this time, then there would be no peace at home and abroad. Fang Yan was threatening Jiang Junling, and Jiang Junling was also threatening Fang Yan. As soon as they came into contact, swords were drawn. Lan Shanggu wished he could stick his head into his pants. Once again, he regretted sitting here. Why didn't he pretend to be dead and go to the hospital? Why didn't he say that he needed to change sanitary pads when he was on his period? Even if he was beaten twice on the head, it would still be much more relaxing and enjoyable than sitting here and watching Fang Yan and Jiang Junling stab each other. Lan Shanggu felt that he was really too pitiful. Fang Yan held a cup of Longjing tea in his hand, looked at Jiang Junling and said, "If I were you, I would definitely not be stupid enough to provoke a powerful opponent at this time." Jiang Junling calmly looked at Fang Yan and said, "When friends come, there is good wine. When enemies come, there is a hammer. Friend or enemy, I know very well." Pa. Fang Yan raised his hand and splashed the cup of Longjing tea at Jiang Junling, who was sitting opposite him. Whoosh, the tea was like an arrow, piercing toward Jiang Junling's face. The old man in shades moved like a goshawk. With a wave of his wide sleeves, the cup of Longjing tea was taken away without a drop of rain. From beginning to end, the General Ling sat steadily in his original position, not showing any signs of panic or anger. He was like an emotionless stone Buddha. The old man in shades was on guard, but Fang Yan didn't make any further moves. Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan and said, "This kind of insult has no meaning. If even you say it's an insult, then it means that this kind of behavior will make you unhappy. I'm not a very promising person, but if I can make someone I don't like a little unhappy, I'll be very happy," Fang Yan said with a smile. "Tell me honestly, do you feel a little unhappy in your heart?" Jiang Junling nodded honestly and said, "It's not just a little unhappy, it's very unhappy. No one has ever dared to pour tea on the face of a member of the general's family. In the eyes of the elderly, this kind of insult is very serious, and it must be paid with blood. In other words, I'll have to be more careful when I go out in the future. Just take it as a friendly reminder." Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan and said, "I sincerely wish for your family to be safe." Hearing Jiang Junling's threat again, Fang Yan couldn't help but laugh and said, "You must have heard of this saying, the barefooted are not afraid of those who wear shoes. We've experienced it before, so we know how painful it is to lose a loved one. After knowing it, we hope that this feeling won't befall us again, but befall others. For example, those people who want to kill us." Jiang Junling, do you believe it? I'm really not afraid of tearing your neck off." When Fang Yan said this last sentence, the smile on his face had disappeared, and his voice was devoid of any emotion. His clear eyes became deep, and a frightening scarlet red appeared in his pupils. At this moment, Fang Yan was filled with killing intent, and he was as violent as a general who had just slaughtered thousands of enemy soldiers on the battlefield. Even the heart of Grand Mystery couldn't suppress such killing intent. Even Laozi's mind-clearing incantation couldn't get rid of such killing intent. The expression of the old man in sunglasses changed again, and he couldn't help but sit up, moving sideways toward Jiang Junling. This was to prevent Fang Yan's sudden attack from catching him off guard. The old man in sunglasses looked at Fang Yan and said angrily, how did you get the smell of blood from practicing the Feng Tai Chi? In the past, your grandfather wrote to me, praising you as a rare martial arts prodigy. You've indeed lived up to expectations, comprehending the heart of Tai Chi at such a young age. Not only the Feng family, but also the famous Tai Chi clans all agree that you're the master of Tai Chi's resurgence. But look at what you're doing now. What are you practicing? You're going to lead Tai Chi down the wrong path. Fang Yen knew that the old man in sunglasses was really doing this for his own good. Old people at their age still had a strong sense of greatness, such as the resurgence of their country and culture. Fang Yen had grown up in such a family, so he had subtly inherited such emotional cognition. The red in Fang Yan's eyes slowly disappeared, and the hostility in his heart dissipated. Only then was he able to speak to the old man in sunglasses in a normal tone. He said, I know that the way I practice is wrong, and I also know that I'm going down the wrong path, but I really have no other choice. My heart is full of hatred, and I'm full of killing intent. If I don't vent these feelings, I think I'll never be able to return to the right path. In 3 years, I haven't made any progress in my martial arts, and I haven't mastered my chi. Grandfather is also very worried for me, and he has asked me countless times to let go of the knot in my heart and let go of the hatred, but how can I let go? How can I let go? The knot in my heart isn't to let go, but to untie it. The hatred isn't to let go, but to have an eye for an eye. Fang Yen opened his mouth and smiled at Jiang Junling, saying, that's why I came out. I used my own method to untie the knot in my heart and let go of the hatred. Jiang Junling, in the future, when I'm good at martial arts, you'll definitely be my greatest benefactor. I can't bear it, Jiang Junling said with a serious expression. At this moment, in his heart, Fang Yen was like a rabid dog that could pounce and bite someone at any time. He somewhat regretted coming to Huaqing at this time. Chapter 481. If he won, it would be natural, but if he lost, he would lose face. This was Jiang Junling's current situation, just like last time. He had already thought of this question. Why did he still come to Flower City? Because he thought that he would definitely win this time. There was no possibility of losing at all. Why are you regretting it now? Jiang Junling suddenly thought of this question. With his intelligence, he quickly came up with an answer that was 99% true. Because he was afraid. He was afraid that he wouldn't win, afraid that he would lose again. Facing Fang Yen, who was currently like a mad dog, Jiang Junling's strong heart loosened a little. Thinking that he was actually afraid, Jiang Junling became truly angry. This anger had nothing to do with others, but his disappointment in himself. He was growing, and so was Fang Yen. This was something he had already guessed long ago. He was no longer the normal Fang Yen, but so what? The big picture is in the hands of the heavens, and I am the one who succeeds. Compared to himself, how many trump cards does he have? This kind of negative emotion only lasted for a fleeting moment before it once again turned into a modest, proud, confident and powerful General Ling. Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yen and said, since we've known each other for a long time, I wish you success in martial arts. However, I think we've both overlooked the real purpose of this meeting. We're here to trade, aren't we? Can't be overlooked, Fang Yen smiled and said. He held Lu Chaoga's hand and said, I brought the victim to the negotiation site to let you all feel the brutality and viciousness of those bandits. Look, how could they be so heartless as to lay their hands on such a beautiful and charming little woman? Everyone present was speechless. Who the hell would look at whether the hostage was a beautiful woman before kidnapping? The main thing was to see how much profit they could get from the hostage, all right? Fang Yen looked at Lan Shanggu and said, Lan Shanggu, if it were you, would you kidnap such a beautiful woman and cut off her hair to paint with her scalp? Lan Shanggu was shocked and said, young master, don't joke with me like this. I am timid. I am a legitimate businessman in Lauren Valley. I don't do anything illegal. That wouldn't last long, and it would be easy for him to fall into the ditch. Your whole body stinks. I'm afraid you've lost your life. Only now did Jiang Junling, Lan Shanggu, and the others learn about the details of the kidnapping. He thought to himself that Feng Xing and Qiang Longtan, these two old freaks, were really capable of doing anything. They had also done the extremely cruel thing of painting on their scalps. No wonder Feng Yan had something on them that could be used to make them beg for death. Since Feng Yan hated Feng Xing and Qiang Longtan so much, today's negotiation was naturally to cut off a piece of flesh from Jiang Junling. However, he didn't know if Jiang Junling would give in or not. If Jiang Junling wasn't willing to pay up, the fight between the two would become heated and protracted. Thinking of his position between the two, Lan Shanggu wanted to cry but had no tears. Who did he offend? Jiang Junling's eyes turned cold and said, "Don't use groundless things to confuse people. People will laugh at you if this gets out." Jiang Junling's eyes moved to Lu Chaoga's face and praised, "Miss Lu's hairstyle is very beautiful today. It complements your temperament, simple and elegant." Jiang Junling countered Feng Yan's words with the truth. "Didn't you say that they cut off Lu Chaoga's hair to paint on her scalp?" Lu Chaoga's hair was still there, which proved that every attack on their character was a lie. Feng Yan surely understood the meaning of Jiang Junling's words. He said, "Groundless things? If I was a little bit later, you wouldn't have the chance to praise Miss Lu's hairstyle and temperament today." Feng Yan raised Lu Chaoga's injured hand and said, "This dagger pierced through her palm. Even if it healed, an ugly scar would still be left on the back of her hand." Feng Yan then untied the silk scarf that was tied around Lu Chaoga's neck to cover those scars, looked at Jiang Junling and said, "If I hadn't grabbed that dagger in time, Feng Xing's throat would have already been cut." The look in Lan Shanggu's eyes turned complicated. He finally understood the reason why Feng Yan asked him to stay. At the beginning, he thought that Feng Yan asked him to stay on the scene to be a buffer, in case he and Jiang Junling started a fight without saying a word. If that happened, the negotiation wouldn't go on. When he saw Feng Yan pick up the teacup in front of him and pour it towards Jiang Junling's face, he knew that he was wrong. Feng Yan didn't mean to negotiate with Jiang Junling at all. He was a madman who wouldn't even care about poking a hole in the sky. He didn't care about the power of the Jiang clan at all. Now he understood that Feng Yan asked him to be a witness. To witness the scars on Lu Chaoga's body, and also to prove that Qiang Longtan and Jiang Fengxing were the murderers behind the kidnapping of Lu Chaoga. Before, when Feng Yan said this, some people didn't believe him. Some people even thought that this was a drama directed and acted by Feng Yan himself. He was vicious and merciless, and even the people closest to him were his pawns. Now that Feng Yan showed up with Lu Chaoga, the meaning of his words was clear. These people were the ones who kidnapped Jiang Fengxing and Qiang Longtan. Every word he said was true. Otherwise, would Feng Yan really cut Lu Chaoga's neck a few times? Or would he stab the back of Lu Chaoga's hand with a knife? Feng Yan wanted to borrow his eyes and mouth. He wanted to spread what he saw with his own eyes, to let the people of Huaqing know that Feng Yan wasn't as evil and treacherous as they thought. Most importantly, Feng Yan wanted those who followed him or had the intention to follow him to know that his character was not as bad as they thought or what the rumors said. Every word and action of this guy had a hidden meaning. He really couldn't be underestimated. As expected, if Lan Shanggu could think of it, Jiang Junling could think of it in advance. Jiang Junling glanced at Lan Shanggu thoughtfully and said, "One side of the story, you can't take it seriously. If you really want to get justice for Miss Lu, why don't you send my fourth uncle and Uncle Jiang here, and let the three parties confront each other face to face? What's wrong is wrong, and what's right is right after all. No matter how good their acting skills are, how can they hide from the eyes of everyone here? In this way, even if they spread the word to the outside, they would have a more straightforward and clear understanding." "Gu, don't you think so?" Lan Shanggu laughed and said, "What's right is right after all, and what's wrong is wrong after all. I believe the truth will come to light one day. As long as people are still alive, the truth will never disappear." Jiang Junling smiled faintly. He knew that Lan Shanggu would give an answer that was biased towards Fang Yan's side. But whether or not to say it was very important. When Lan Shanggu spread the word, he still had to consider the attitude of the Jiang family on this matter. I think so too, Fang Yan said. A country has its laws, and a family has its rules. If they break the law, they will naturally be handed over to the authorities to deal with. Oh right, when I came, I already sent those bandits to the police station. They are probably being interrogated now, right? Jiang Junling smiled without saying anything. He said, Fang Yan, why can't we just get to the point? Why waste your time and mine like this? You don't trust me to send them to the police station? Of course, Jiang Junling said. If you did, I would admire your selflessness. Fang Yan smiled shyly and said, you guessed it right. I really can't bear to send them to the police station. Jiang Fengxing is a big shot in the Jiang family. If he was sent to the police station as a kidnapper, the Jiang family's reputation would probably fall to the ground and be covered in dust, right? You won't get any compensation either. Between the two of us, who will suffer a greater loss? So, when Jiang Shangxin came to my house to ask for my help, I agreed to give you a chance. I have already stated the conditions, you can only do two things. Accept it or you have no choice but to accept it. I want to confirm a few things, Jiang Junling said. First, are they still alive? Them? Which one? My fourth uncle, Jiang Fengxing, and Jiang Zhuliu's father, Qiang Longtan. Are they still alive? Oh, they tied him up and threw him into the vast ocean. When I tried my best to find him, I only saw Jiang Fengxing and a few of his helpers. After a fierce fight, I finally subdued them. I've never seen the dragon pool before, but I've never seen it before. I don't know if they were thrown into the deep sea by your fourth uncle because they couldn't split the loot evenly. I don't know how to swim. Even if I could, I wouldn't jump into the sea to look for them. What does his life have to do with me, right? Lan Shanggu's hand trembled slightly as he held the teacup in his hand. Qiang Longtan was already dead? After Jiang Zhuliu's wedding, the Jiang family's reputation had been trampled into the abyss by Fang Yan. However, no one dared to underestimate the Jiang family. Because the Jiang family had Qiang Longtan, and because the Jiang family had the backing of the Jiang family. Who could guarantee that the Jiang family wouldn't be able to rise again? If Qiang Longtan was also dead, with just Jiang Zhulu, would he be able to carry the Jiang family's banner? Jiang Junling nodded and said, in other words, Qiang Longtan is dead? I said I don't know. The Jiang family still has to bear the crime of killing Qiang Longtan? You don't have to bear it. Fang Yan said confidently, if you don't want to bear it, then let someone else bear it. I don't like to force people. If that's the case. Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan and said, I think your price is too high. We can only give you 10% of Long To Group's shares at most. This is the highest price we can offer after discussing with Jiang Zhulu. Fang Yan helped Lu Chaoga up and said, as the victim's family, we refuse to accept such a humiliating price. Negotiation ends here. Before he finished, he was already holding Lu Chaoga's hand and walking towards the door of the private room. Chapter 482. Negotiations, of course, should be negotiated first. They haven't even had a proper negotiation, and they've already been sentenced to death. Who would want to do business with such a person? Do they have any morals? Do they have any professionalism? Do they have any negotiating spirit? Jiang Junling knew that Fang Yan was difficult to deal with, but he really didn't expect him to get up and leave as soon as he stated his conditions. What kind of insulting price was that? Who the hell was insulting who? Why do I feel like I'm being insulted too? Is he really not afraid that this negotiation will collapse? Or does he think that he has nothing to fear just because he has a hostage in his hand, and that he will definitely win this war? Seeing Fang Yan being so unscrupulous and not giving him any face, Jiang Junling's expression couldn't help but become even more hostile. He always thought that his cultivation was profound and his endurance was better than others. But every time he met Fang Yan, he would break through, and he really wanted to roll up his sleeves and fight 300 rounds with him regardless of his identity and image. He looked at Fang Yan's back and said aloud, "I think you may not understand some things. Do you know how much 10% of Longtu Group's shares are worth? With the good performance of the energy stocks in the market, its total market value will not be much lower than the current Chaoyan technology. How much can you get in Chaoyan? It can't be more than 10%, right?" Fang Yan suddenly turned around and stared at Jiang Junling. "In your heart, you think that 10% of Longtu Group's shares is already a lot, an astronomical number, enough to compensate for all our losses, but you definitely don't know what Lu Chaoga means to me." Fang Yan held Lu Chaoga's hand and said in a deep voice, "She is my friend, my family, Chaoyan's soul and everything. Without her, Chaoyan technology would not exist at all. I don't even have the chance to sit here and talk to you as equals. Such an important person was kidnapped by the Jiang family." Jiang Junling frowned and said, "She was not kidnapped by the Jiang family. Please watch your words. Is Jiang Fengxing not a member of the Jiang family? Didn't you just call him fourth uncle?" "Jiang Fengxing is a member of the Jiang family, and he is indeed my fourth uncle. However, the Jiang family belongs to all members of the Jiang family, not just one person. Other than two people, no one else can stand out and say that they represent the Jiang family. Besides, the truth is still unclear. Before I see fourth uncle, I don't believe that the Jiang family kidnapped Miss Lu Chaoga." "If that's the case," Fang Yan sneered, "why are you negotiating with me? I'll hand them over directly to the police station. You can bring your family to the police station to visit them and understand what happened. Isn't that easy for you? Why did you come to my house and beg me to negotiate? If you don't do anything against your conscience, you won't be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door. But if you've done too many things against your conscience, even the slightest movement outside will make you paranoid and restless." "Fang Yan, you are testing my patience." Jiang Junling, "Don't put on a high and mighty face in front of me. If I cared about your identity, I wouldn't have beaten you black and blue 3 years ago. What's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong. You've done wrong, so you have to receive the punishment you deserve. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have a special identity. You can do it with others, but not with me. As the victim's family, we have the final say on whether we are satisfied with the compensation, not you, the perpetrator, decide. Now, I can tell you very clearly that I am very dissatisfied with this result." General Ling took a sip of tea from his teacup and said, 20%, 30%, Fang Yan said. "I've already stated the conditions. Only by reaching this condition will we feel a little more balanced. Although I think it still can't compare to the losses we've suffered. Longtu Group's future valuation is far from Chaoyan technology. Can 30% of Longtu Group's shares be compared to all of Chaoyan Technology's shares? Everyone knows that if something happens to Lu Chaoga in this kidnapping incident, Chaoyan Technology will suffer a fatal blow. Don't you feel that you've taken advantage of me by stating such a merciful condition?" Jiang Junling pondered for a moment and said, "Fine. 30%. I promise you. But the condition is that you let her go first. Only after you let her go, will I ask someone to transfer the shares of Longtu Group to you." Fang Yan took Lu Chaoga's hand and sat back down. He said, "That's not a problem." Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan and asked, "Where do we pick her up?" "South Sea," Fang Yan said. Rumble, the off-road vehicle's engine roared, and the vehicle bounced up and down, continuously conquering one protrusion or pit after another. This was an undeveloped road that extended infinitely along the coastline of Huacheng. It was sparsely populated, and it was not conducive to driving. Jiang Zhulu was used to sitting in luxury cars with excellent shock absorption. His body was bounced up and down again, repeating this process over and over again. It made him feel as if his internal organs were being moved. He resisted the nausea and the urge to lie by the window and vomit to his heart's content. He tried his best to look calm and composed, as if nothing had happened. At this time, Jiang Julio's heart was especially sensitive, and he needed other people's respect and approval even more. The driver was an experienced driver. His movements were skilled and agile. Even on such a difficult road, he could still drive the car at high speed, which was enough to show his superb skills. Sitting in the front passenger seat was a middle-aged man in a black suit. When they first met, he introduced himself as Eagle King, and was the main person in charge of searching for the target in the team. Sitting side by side with Jiang Zhulu were two big shots of the martial arts world. One was the Tai saber god, Li Wanfu. It was said that his Tai saber was superb, and he could use 13 sabers at most. As the leader of the lovers' school, he had a great reputation. The other big shot was the dragon master, Bao Shi, who had fought with Fang Yan in the 10-feet abyss and was beaten into a coma by Fang Yan. In the past, Jiang Zhulu did not have much of a good impression and understanding of these martial arts figures. Now that it was a society governed by law, no matter how good their martial arts were, would they come and beat him up for no reason? Only now did Jiang Zhulu gradually realize the importance of these people. For example, he was here to pick up Jiang Fengxing and his father. If it were not for these powerful people accompanying him, he would not have the courage to come to such a place to pick them up alone. Li Wanfu and Bao Shi were sitting in the car with their eyes closed, as if they had fallen asleep. Their bodies were moving up and down with the bumps of the car, but there was nothing strange on their faces. Their bodies were integrated with the car, going up and down at the same time with ease. Screech, the car suddenly braked and stopped at the edge of a high cliff. Eagle King was the first to get out of the car. He glanced at the satellite positioning system on his wrist and said, "The agreed place for the transaction is here." Jiang Zhulu opened the car door and got out. He really could not stand the stuffy air in the car. He took in big mouthfuls of the salty and humid sea air, which made his body feel slightly better. The feeling of vomiting that was about to gush up to the corner of his mouth disappeared, allowing him to save some face. Jiang Zhulu walked to Eagle King's side and looked at the vast deep blue sea. He said, "Where are they? Why don't I see anything?" "There are still 5 minutes left," Eagle King said. "We arrived 5 minutes earlier than the agreed time." Jiang Zhulio's phone rang in his pocket. He glanced at the caller ID and saw that it was Jiang Junling. He answered the phone and said, "Young master, we have arrived at the destination, but we haven't seen fourth uncle and the others yet." "Be careful," Jiang Junling said and hung up the phone. As soon as the call ended, a cruise ship sailed over the sea. Everyone was shocked. The people they had been waiting for had finally arrived. Eagle King took the lead and walked toward the coastline under the cliff, and Jiang Zhulu followed closely behind. Li Wanfu and Bao Shi also got off the ship and followed behind Jiang Zhulu, one in front and one on the right. The purpose of their trip was to ensure Jiang Zhulio's personal safety. The cruise ship arrived in the blink of an eye and anchored at the edge of the stone bridge, which seemed to have been in disrepair and had been corroded beyond recognition by the seawater. A thin man jumped off the ship and tied the rope in his hand to the pillar of the stone bridge. Then, he stood at the bridgehead and coldly waited for Jiang Zhulu and the others to arrive. Jiang Zhulu rushed to the front and asked the thin man, "Where are they?" "On the ship," Snake Lord said. "I want to go up and take a look," Jiang Zhulu said. "Make the deal first." Snake Lord stood in the middle of the stone bridge, not letting them go over. "I don't see them. How can I make the deal?" Jiang Zhulu said unwillingly. The Serpent King whistled, following which, a man in black clothes dragged Feng Xing onto the deck. The man in black took off the blindfold from Feng Xing's head and pulled out the black cloth from his mouth. After that, Feng Xing immediately started yelling out, "Zhu Lu, help me! Zhu Lu, help me! Where are the others?" Jiang Zhulu asked. "No one else," Snake Lord said with a smile. "Don't go too far. You took my father away as well." "We don't see your father," Snake Lord said. "Maybe he was thrown into the sea to feed the sharks." He felt that these rich people were very strange. On the surface, they seemed to be loyal and affectionate, but secretly, they were thieves and prostitutes. What couldn't they do? I'll kill you. Jiang Julio's eyes were blood red, and he looked like he wanted to kill Snake Lord. Eagle Eye rushed in front of Jiang Zhulu and said, "Let's make the deal first." Eagle Eye looked at Snake Lord and said, "Give him to me. The boss will sign the transfer of shares." Snake Lord smiled and shook his head. "The more I meet people, the more I feel that they are not as loyal and reliable as my little snakes. What if you don't sign after I give him to you? Let your boss sign first, then this ship and the people on it are all yours." Chapter 483. Eagle King sneered, his eyes as sharp as a vulture's. "You have your considerations, we also have our concerns. What if we sign it, but you don't give it to us? That is indeed a problem." Snake Lord thought about it seriously. "This problem is too profound, my IQ is low, I really can't think of a good solution. How about we cancel today's deal?" After saying that, Snake Lord jumped towards the cruise ship behind him. Eagle King's body trembled in anger. What kind of attitude is this bastard? Do we need to beg you to make a deal? Want to leave? Li Wanfu shouted, his body like a rock spreading its wings, leaping into the air. His hands turned into eagle claws, swiftly grabbing towards Snake Lord's nape. Vajra subduing dragon claw. This was an inner sect technique of the Mandarin duck sect, extremely powerful. The wind howled, the energy was like a knife. Li Wanfu's hands were faintly red. It was the phenomenon of internal combustion when he used his internal energy to the extreme. With his internal energy cultivation, if he really did grab a human body, it would be light injuries and broken bones, serious cases would be death on the spot. Li Wanfu had a violent temper, it was very difficult to escape unscathed from his hands. More or less, a piece of flesh or some other body part would be left. Even if it was just a touch of energy, Snake Lord already felt a burning pain on his back. He was in midair, his strength exhausted. It was too late to turn around. But he didn't need to. His mouth let out a hurried flute sound. A small golden snake came out of his trench coat, hissing and pouncing towards Li Wanfu, who was full of murderous intent. Bastard! Li Wanfu was furious. He had been famous for a long time, his Tai saber was extremely powerful, he rarely met an opponent. Usually, he lived like a prince, no one dared to touch him. He didn't expect a small snake to be so presumptuous in front of him. With a flick of his wrist, a small golden knife jumped into his hand. With a flash of golden light, the small golden snake screamed and was cut in half. After cutting the golden snake, Li Wanfu's speed didn't slow down, his saber momentum didn't stop, stabbing towards Snake Lord's back again. Whoosh! The Snake Lord suddenly turned around and threw a handful of white powder at Li Wanfu. Whoosh! Li Wanfu quickly withdrew his body, and the goshawk turned into a sparrow. His dantian exerted force once more, and his body quickly retreated. Quang quang quang, Li Wanfu's body once again landed on the broken bridge. Because the force of his forward charge was too strong, he retreated a little hurriedly. His body staggered back a few steps before he managed to steady himself. The two energies collided and clashed in his body, and a sweet taste of blood rushed into his throat. He pursed his lips and swallowed it back down. Bao Shishir was enraged. As he was about to leap up and chase after Jiang Fengxing, the Snake Lord had already grabbed Jiang Fengxing's neck. Bao Shishir snorted, but he could only stare at the Snake Lord coldly. "Since we can't make a deal, let's part ways here," Snake Sovereign said with a smile. He stared at Li Wanfu, Bao Shishir, and the others and shouted, "Set sail." Kacha, the cruise ship began to move. The Snake Lord flicked his sleeve, and a silver light flashed. The rope tied to the stone pillar of the broken bridge was cut into two pieces. One end was still tied to the stone pillar, while the other was swaying in the wind. "Wait!" Jiang Zhulu anxiously shouted. "Let me make a call." Since it was something that Jiang Junling and Fang Yan had already discussed, it meant that they had already made a decision. What he needed to do now was to ensure the smooth success of this deal. "Go ahead," Snake Lord said. Jiang Zhulu dialed Jiang Junling's number and said, "Young master, I saw fourth uncle, but I didn't see my father. Zhulu, I already know about this. I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure yet, so I'm leaving this deal to you. I hope you can see it with your own eyes." Jiang Junling comforted him in a soft voice. "No matter how bad the situation is, we're already mentally prepared. What others owe us, they will eventually pay us back." "I understand," Jiang Junling said. "The deal is in progress, they want young master to sign first." "Give me 1 minute," Jiang Junling said. Jiang Zhulu hung up again and waited patiently. The cruise ship's engine roared, but it didn't start to leave. In less than a minute, Snake Lord received the message. He let go of Jiang Fengxing and said, "The deal is done, this ship and the people on it are all yours." After that, he dashed towards the other side of the ship. The people on the other side had already prepared a rubber boat. As soon as Snake Lord jumped on it, the rubber boat split the water and rushed towards the distant deep sea. Eagle King was the first to jump on the boat and threw the cruise ship's rope to them. Li Wanfu grabbed the rope and fastened it to the pillar of the broken bridge again. Li Wanfu and Bao Shi also got on the boat. One went to check the cabin to make sure the cruise ship was safe. The other went to the captain's room to check the direction of the cruise ship. Jiang Zhulu was the last to get on the boat. After rushing to the deck, he untied Jiang Fengxing and asked anxiously, "Dad, how do you feel? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" "I'm fine," Jiang Fengxing said weakly. If Jiang Zhulu didn't hold him up, he wouldn't have been able to stand at all. These days, every day felt like a year to him. Both his mind and body had suffered unimaginable torture. "Where's my dad? Have you seen my dad?" Jiang Fengxing shook his head and said, I don't know, we were separated on the ship. When I woke up, Dragon Pool was already gone. I never saw him again." Jiang Zhulio's eyes were red. He yelled towards the cabin, "Mr. Bao, Mr. Li, have you seen my dad?" "No," Bao Shi said as he walked out. "No," Li Wanfu yelled from the cockpit. "There's really nothing left," Jiang Zhulu said hoarsely. "There's really nothing left." He had already guessed that something bad had happened to his father, but he still had a glimmer of hope. Now that he saw Jiang Fengxing, who had disappeared with his father, but there was no trace of his father, he knew that his father was gone for good. He would never come back. Jiang Fengxing was also very sad. He put his hand on Jiang Zhulio's shoulder and comforted him, "Zhulu, don't think too much. Maybe your father has already been rescued, or maybe he's been hidden by them. They're going to ask us for more benefits. Your father is not here, you are the pillar of the Jiang family. You have to take care of yourself. Don't let your body fall." "I understand. I understand." Jiang Zhulu said with a hideous expression and blood-red eyes, "I'm mentally prepared." "That's good," Jiang Fengxing said tiredly, "let's go home. Let's go back. I don't want to stay in this damn place for one more second." "Dad, you can't go back," Jiang Zhulu said in a low voice. "What did you say?" Jiang Fengxing's body shook. He vigilantly stared at Jiang Zhulu. He wanted to push Jiang Zhulu away and stand alone, but his legs were shaking. He couldn't bear the weight of his body at all. Jiang Zhulio's eyes became as fierce as a wolf's. He lowered his voice and said, "Someone doesn't want you to go back." Jiang Zhulu raised a syringe that he had prepared earlier and suddenly pierced it towards Jiang Fengxing's heart. Jiang Fengxing felt as if he had been hit by a heavy blow. He wanted to say something, but his mouth was trembling and he couldn't say anything. His body twitched, and a large amount of foam came out of his mouth. His body softly fell into Jiang Zhulio's arms. "How good it would be if you died earlier," Jiang Zhulu said with a hideous smile. Jiang Fengxing couldn't hear his curses anymore, because his heart had stopped beating. "Dad," Jiang Zhulu cried out. "Dad, what's wrong? Dad, don't scare me, help, help. After 3 rounds of tea, Fang Yan's phone on the table finally rang. Fang Yan took the phone and glanced at it. He looked at Jiang Junling, who was sitting opposite him, and said, "Congratulations on our successful transaction." Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan and said, "Didn't we already have a successful transaction after you got the share transfer contract?" At that time, it only represented that I got the loan to group's shares. Fang Yan smiled and said, "Only by receiving this message can my people leave safely. You're a good boss who knows how to care for your subordinates." Jiang Junling smiled faintly. "But you're not a good man who knows how to love your family." Fang Yan said mockingly, "Jiang Fengxing probably won't have a chance to go ashore anymore, right?" Jiang Junling's expression was firm. He said, "I don't understand what you mean. Whether it's you or the Jiang family, you won't allow Jiang Fengxing, a man who brought shame to the Jiang family, to come home, right?" Jiang Junling lowered his head and drank his tea. He said calmly, "Fourth uncle is a member of the Jiang family, my family. Of course, we want him to come home. But the sea is stormy. If something happens to him, what else can we do other than grieve?" Fang Yan said with a face full of mockery, "Stormy sea? Not only is the sea stormy, but it's also dangerous on land." Jiang Junling raised his head and looked at Fang Yan. His eyes narrowed, and he asked in a deep voice, "What are you trying to say?" "As a teacher, I won't say things like Huaqing is my territory. If you're a dragon, you have to coil up. If you're a tiger, you have to squat down. That's meaningless and makes me sound very vulgar. As a man with manners, I won't say things like Huaqing's traffic is bad and you have to be careful when crossing the road. That's a strong threat. But, what I want to tell you is that from this moment on, Huaqing has entered the era of Fang Yan." Fang Yan smiled as he looked at Jiang Junling. He said, "Whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not. In Huaqing, you'd better keep a low profile. I don't like people with high profiles. Except myself." Before Fang Yan left the room, he added. Chapter 484. I think those who like to use money or power to oppress people are nouveau riche. Like those who become rich overnight, their mentality is unbalanced, and it is difficult to control their inflated ego, causing them to do things that are irrational and have no bottom line. Fang Yan explained to Lu Chaoga with a serious face, "I won't do such a thing. It's embarrassing." Lu Chaoga didn't answer. Because she didn't know how to answer this question. "Do I have money?" Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoga and asked. "Yes," Lu Chaoga replied. Now, Fang Yan was really rich, a lot of money. Perhaps even he himself didn't know how much profit Chaoyan Technologies shares would bring him every day. Moreover, with Chaoyan Technologies' current valuation of tens of billions of dollars, if he was willing to sell his part of the shares, he could immediately become one of the billionaires in Huaxia. As long as he was willing, he could be on the Forbes rich list in minutes. Of course, most of the rich people on the list were actually unwilling to be on it. "Do I have power?" Fang Yan asked. "Yes." Lu Chaoga nodded again. With the Rubik's Cube as the core and Chaoyan Technology as the carrier, Lu Chaoga helped Fang Yan create an alliance that gathered the interests of many parties. Whether it was the Lu family represented by Lu Shu or the Lan family represented by Lan Shan, they all had to surround Fang Yan and show their loyalty as much as possible. Not to mention, there was the unwavering support of the little girl from the Qin family. Now, Fang Yan could be described with 2 words, monstrous power. "I have money and power." Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoga's beautiful eyes and said confidently, "And in a situation where we are completely in the right, when I was facing Jiang Junling, wasn't my posture very elegant?" Lu Chaoga thought about it and said with some embarrassment, "It was all right." "Was my tone very calm?" "Sort of. I didn't lose my temper with him, I didn't make a scene with him, I didn't jump up and gesture at his mother, pour the tea on him," Lu Chaoga said. Fang Yan's expression stiffened, and then a puzzled look appeared on his face as he asked, "Really? Have I ever done such a thing?" "Yes." This time, Lu Chaoga nodded firmly. I remember now. I did do something like that. Fang Yan grinned. You saw it too. At that time, Jiang Junling was a little nervous when he faced me, so there was a layer of sweat on his face. I was worried that he was hot, so I wanted to help him cool down. I didn't expect the old man beside him to be even more greedy. He actually stretched out his sleeve and took the cup of tea away. Maybe old people are more afraid of heat. If you really want to explain it like that, the corner of Lu Chaoga's mouth slightly curled up, and there was a faint smile on her face as she said, then I choose to believe you. Fang Yan also smiled. His smile was clean and pure. I am now a noble, Fang Yan said. Yes. Lu Chaoga bowed slightly to Fang Yan and said, Sir Fang Yan, will you still cook and wash the dishes tonight? The two of them looked at each other and laughed unrestrainedly. They had been suppressed for too long, and they had been held hostage by hatred for too long. Every word was like a knife, and every gaze was hidden with murderous intent. Lu Chaoga hated the people around him who coveted the Rubik's Cube and could endanger his life at any time. Fang Yan hated the killers who took away his life and the joy of his family. At this moment, they were smiling from the bottom of their hearts. There was no hatred, no murderous intent, only a feeling of complete relaxation in both body and mind. Lu Chaoga reached out and held Fang Yan's hand. She looked straight into Fang Yan's smiling eyes and said softly, Fang Yan, I like you like this. You don't know, when I saw you again 3 years later, how scary your gaze was. At that time, my hands and feet were cold, as if I was being stared at by a terrifying monster. Although it was just a glance, and you changed very quickly, it still left me with a lingering fear. I can understand your life in the past 3 years, and I also know what you have been through these years. At that time, I felt that you were both strange and familiar. I was afraid and pitiful. I reached out and held your hand. I wanted you to feel my strength, to feel my warmth. To make your heart feel a little better, so that you were not so murderous. And when you were talking to Jiang Junling just now, your expression was ferocious, and your pupils were bloodshot. You were like a werewolf who could pounce on others at any time, bite off their blood vessels and drink their blood. The murderous intent in your eyes was too strong, and the hostility in your heart was too heavy. At that time, I felt that I was looking at a complete stranger. The smile on Fang Yan's face was still there. He looked lovingly at Lu Chaoga, who was holding his hand tighter and tighter. He could feel her wholehearted care, and he could also feel the worry that she had not spoken out. From the first day they met, he knew that she was worried about his emotions and his psychological state. She was worried about everything about him. But as smart as she was, she did not say anything. What could you say to a barrel of dynamite? She just used her consideration to take care of Fang Yan, and her gentleness to melt Fang Yan. She hoped that the volcano would cool down. She hoped that the dynamite would stop. She hoped that Fang Yan could return to the state that he wanted in the end. However, before she could do more, she was kidnapped. She thought that she needed to go through another course of treatment. She thought that everything would have to start again. But what made her ecstatic was that Fang Yan actually walked out on his own. Although it was just a tentative step, this foot could be pulled back at any time. But she knew that their opportunity had come. It was today, and it was now. She chose to have an open and honest talk with Fang Yan. She thought that she had made the right bet, and she also hoped that she had made the right bet. Fang Yan, I don't know how to resolve the murderous intent in your heart, and I don't know how to make the hostility in your heart disappear. I don't care about the life and death of Jiang Junling or anyone else, and I don't care about the life and death of anyone else, but I care about you. How can your body bear so many things? Fang Yan, you are not that kind of person. You have always been a simple and kind man. You are very smart, but you use your intelligence on the things that you like. You know how to strategize, but you never abuse your intelligence to hurt the innocent. There are too many bad people in this world, but too few good people. Don't squeeze into the group of bad people, and be a good person. Isn't that good? That's the only way you'll be truly happy. You can laugh heartlessly, you can say things that make people very angry but also very funny, and you can do things that others can't think of and can't do. This is the Feng Yan, this is the you that I know. Lu Chaoga held Feng Yan's hand tightly, as if she wanted to pull the previous Feng Yan out. Feng Yan, you are too tired now. You are tired, and those of us who care about you are tired too, Lu Chaoga said emotionally. If you laugh, we will laugh too. Feng Yan held Lu Chaoga's beautiful hand back, and it was a promise to her. I like quiet, simple, and poetic life, where I can see the golden sunlight and breathe the fresh air the moment I open my eyes. Lu Chaoga's eyes lit up, and she said, yes, this is the Feng Yan, this is the state of life that you should find back. Wait for me to kill all those bad people, Feng Yan said with a serious expression. Seeing that Lu Chaoga's face was full of worry again, Feng Yan pretended to be in deep thought and said, however, when you take revenge, you can also enjoy life, right? In the funeral parlor, Jiang Shangxin suddenly felt a heart-wrenching pain as she looked at the cold face of the man on the morgue. This was her father, the father who gave birth to and raised her, the father who bought her countless toys and taught her to sing nursery rhymes and play games. He was also the man that she was most attached to and liked when she was young. At that time, he was her sorcerer and guardian knight. As she grew older, she knew more and more things, and her feelings for her father became weaker and weaker. In the end, she went to school, studied abroad, and had her own company and career. Sometimes, she didn't even see her father for a year. She didn't feel that anything was wrong, and whoever left could live equally well. Moreover, that was a man who made her carry the shame. Now, he was gone. He would never talk to her again, he would never let her take care of herself again, he would never call her when he was drunk and say that his daughter's father missed her again, she could never do anything again. This was the last side, and very soon, the corpse would be incinerated into a pile of ashes. This was the final fate of humans. However, to her and her father, wasn't this moment a little too early? The bones in both legs were fractured, and they were then fixed with splints as a disguise. The fatal injury was caused by a heart defibrillator. This drug is very popular in the European black market, and it is an advanced poison that can cause rapid heart failure. If one is poisoned by this drug, there is basically no cure. Because there is simply no time, the doctor in charge of the autopsy reported to Li Yun in a low voice. Madam, please restrain your grief. You may leave, Li Yun said expressionlessly. The doctor nodded and quickly left the morgue that made one feel extremely suffocated. He felt that it was very strange. This wasn't his first time performing an autopsy, and he was more familiar with corpses than with women's bodies. In the past, he could do it with ease, but why did it feel so strange today? Perhaps it was because the employer this time was too powerful. Li Yun glanced at Zhang Zhulu and said, Zhulu, what's going on? When I arrived, Dad could still talk to me, and he even shouted for me to save him. After we finished the deal with Feng Yan, he fell on top of me. At that time, I still didn't know what happened, Zhang Zhulu explained with a sorrowful expression. I believe you. Li Yun's gaze was as sharp as a knife. But I hope this is the last time. Chapter 485. You can act, I'll act too. Everyone is shameless anyway. One of them acted innocently, while the other acted passionately. This was something that everyone was happy to see. Li Yun knew that Jiang Fengxing couldn't have been killed by Feng Yan or Feng Yan's men. Since Feng Yan had already agreed to the deal, there was no need for him to kill Jiang Fengxing. On the contrary, Feng Yan hoped that Jiang Fengxing could continue to live. Why wouldn't he be happy to let the Jiang family laugh at him? On the other hand, the Jiang family wasn't willing to let Jiang Fengxing live. Jiang Fengxing's failure was like a slap to the Jiang family. He kidnapped Feng Xing, but ended up being kidnapped instead. In the end, he used 30% of the shares of the Longtu Group, which was controlled by Jiang Zhulu, one of his trusted subordinates, in exchange for Feng Xing. This was a humiliation to Feng Xing's family. If Fang Yan wanted to bring this up in the future, Jiang Fengxing would be a living witness. When that happened, not only would the Jiang family lose face, but they would also have to take the blame for him. If he was still alive, many people in the Jiang family would feel uncomfortable. At least, Jiang Junling, who flew to Huacheng but was suppressed by Fang Yan, would be very unhappy. Otherwise, why would Jiang Zhulu dare to do such a thing? Even if Jiang Fengxing was a dog of the Jiang family, as long as his surname was Jiang, he wouldn't be hurt by an outsider like Jiang Zhulu. Jiang Zhulu knew that Li Yun and Jiang Shangxin knew about it, but he had no choice. He needed a fig leaf to cover up not only his helplessness and embarrassment, but also everyone's feelings. Before they fell out with each other, they still had to show their emotions. Li Yun's voice was filled with murderous intent. She stared at Jiang Zhulu and said, "Jiang Zhulu, it's enough to do something like this once. I'm warning you, don't ever hurt Shangxin." Jiang Zhulu glanced at Shangxin, whose eyes were red. He said calmly, "Mom, your worries are unnecessary. Shangxin is my wife. I can't even protect her. How could I hurt her? I hope so." Li Yun glanced at Jiang Fengxing, who was standing on the morgue. After this glance, their fates had ended, and they would never see each other again. After Li Yun left, only the newlyweds, Jiang Zhulu and Jiang Shangxin, were left in the morgue. Jiang Shangxin stared at Jiang Fengxing's purple-blue face and asked, "Was he in pain when he left?" "Very calm." Jiang Zhulu said, "Very sudden. He was not prepared at all. It was very short, in the time it took to say a word." Tears rolled down from the corners of Jiang Shangxin's eyes as she gritted her teeth and said, "Jiang Zhulu, aren't you afraid that I will kill you?" After wiping away the tear at the corner of Shangxin's eye, he walked past Jiang Zhulu with an ice-cold expression, as if nothing had happened. Jiang Zhulu stood rooted to the ground, feeling a chill run down his spine. It was only now that he truly understood how difficult and sad the situation he had fallen into was. Looking around, there was no one around. This was probably what Jiang Junling wanted to see. He wanted to be a lone wolf, just like what Fang Yan had said. He liked to live a simple, peaceful, and poetic life, where he could see the golden sunlight and breathe in the fresh air the moment he opened his eyes. Therefore, this was the life that Fang Yan was living now. He would wake up at 6 in the morning and go to the garden downstairs to exercise. After an hour of exercise, he would go to the kitchen to wash the rice and cook a pot of millet porridge. Then, he would go upstairs to shower and change his clothes. After washing up, he would go downstairs to make breakfast. Fried eggs, slices of bread, vegetable salad, or fruit salad. Of course, this type of breakfast was too monotonous. Fang Yan preferred a bowl of millet porridge with a few plates of pickled vegetables. He would also be able to grab a fried dough stick or a big meat bun and stuff it into his mouth. After he was done with all this, it was time for Lu Chaoga to get out of bed. The two of them would sit together to eat and chat about some relaxing and pleasant topics. After eating, Fang Yan was responsible for washing the dishes, and then he changed his clothes to go to school. Originally, Lu Chaoga wanted Qining to drive the GMC RV to send Fang Yan to the car, but Fang Yan felt that it was too high profile. A school security guard driving such a luxurious car, wouldn't that make the headlines? Fang Yan's security guard had said that he was a low-key man. Therefore, the low-key Fang Yan drove Lu Chaoga's white BMW to school. Of course, Fang Yan also knew that this was not good. Therefore, he did not go through the school's main gate, but entered through the small gate of the family compound that was specially opened for the school teachers. After parking the car in the school's parking lot, he turned out and walked toward the school's gate. The work of the security guard was very tedious and simple. When students entered the school, they would check the students' appearance and discipline, whether they were wearing a tight fit, whether their skirts were too short, whether their hairstyles were too exaggerated and non-mainstream. Sometimes they would also check the students' school cards, and the names of the students who didn't bring their school cards would be recorded, and the homeroom teacher would come and pick them up. Of course, Fang Yen would not do this kind of thing. He sat in the security room, made a cup of fragrant tea, spread out a newspaper, roughly read the day's domestic and international news, and then walked around the school. If there were no gangsters or hooligans coming to cause trouble, or if there were internal fights, Fang Yen had almost nothing to do. Fang Yen was the most idle person in the entire Rosefinch Secondary. Jing Cheng, who stood at the door to check the students' discipline, poked Baldy's arm and said, "Director, isn't that what you should do?" The director of the security guard, Baldy, was full of bitterness, but his mouth was tough as he said, "As your leader, I naturally have to set an example. Suffer first, enjoy second. I'm a director, how can I compete with a young man for enjoyment? If I did that, would I have the status I have today? Don't learn from him, or else what future will you have in the future?" Jing Cheng curled his lips and said, "What future do we need? We're just waiting for a rich woman to come and take care of us, brat." Baldy patted Jing Cheng's head. Jing Cheng slipped away with a smile and ran to the security booth to help Fang Yen fill the teacup that he had just taken a few sips of. At 9 o'clock, the school's bell rang. Most of the students had already entered the classroom, and there were still a few who were late rushing over. After finishing his work, Baldy walked to the security booth and sat next to Fang Yen. He said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, how is Headmaster Lu?" "You mean Chaoga?" "She's not old," Fang Yen said. I didn't mean that, Baldy's butt seemed to be on fire, and he began to fidget. "How can Headmaster Lu be old? In terms of age and appearance, she should be my sister. I'm talking about honorifics. Fang Yen looked at Baldy's appearance and thought that if Lu Chaoga heard what he said, the head of the security department would probably be replaced on the spot. However, for the sake of their friendship, Fang Yen was still willing to help Baldy keep his position. "Are you nervous?" Fang Yen looked at Baldy with a smile and asked. Baldy wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled. He looked at Fang Yen with a flattering expression and said, "You don't say, I'm a little nervous. You can't understand how prestigious Headmaster Lu is in our hearts. If she's not happy, I won't be able to keep my position. Do you know how old I am this year? I've been in Rosefinch High for most of my life, and I've only been promoted to a security captain. I'm ready to retire from this position. I can't just erase it because of one sentence. Wouldn't that be a big loss for me?" Fang Yen patted Baldy's shoulder and said with a smile, "Don't worry. No one is going to take your position as the security captain." "Really?" Baldy was overjoyed. He held Fang Yan's hand and said, "Are you saying this on behalf of Headmaster Lu?" "I'm only representing myself." Fang Yen pulled his hand back. There was a trace of disappointment on the Baldy's face as he said, "Then I feel much more at ease. Headmaster Lu is a good person. Although she hardly comes to school now, she's still the most respected old leader in my heart. If you say she's old, I'm afraid she really can't be the security captain anymore." Fang Yen said with a smile. Baldy quickly covered his mouth and said, "Not old. Headmaster Lu isn't old at all." Then he pulled Fang Yan's hand and said, "Mr. Fang, let me treat you to lunch. There's a restaurant opposite the school that makes good pickled fish. No need. I still have to go back to cook." Fang Yen said. Baldy's eyes were full of little stars. He said, "I really envy you. You must take care of Headmaster Lu's health so that she doesn't have to worry when she works. If you need any help, just let me know. I'll go through fire and water for you." Fang Yen smiled bitterly and said, "I'm just cooking a meal. There's no need for you to go through fire and water for me. Then I'll go make soup and light the fire. There's always a place where I'll be needed." Baldy persistently promoted himself. While the two were chatting, a girl wearing a heavy Rosefinch secondary uniform passed by their security booth. After the girl walked by, she quickly turned back. She knocked on the window and said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, we meet again." Fang Yen looked at the girl with delicate eyebrows and said with a smile, "Hello. We meet again. Do you remember who I am now?" The girl asked with a smile. Su Chi. Fong Yen said. The girl's eyes lit up and said, I didn't expect Mr. Fong to remember. That's so nice. Fong Yen smiled faintly and said, I'll try my best to remember more students' names. Of course, I can't remember most of them. There are too many students in the school. I don't care, just remember my name, Su Chi said with a giggle. Mr. Fong, do you have time tonight? Chapter 486. Baldy's face was full of vigilance. He put his bald head in front of Fong Yen and said to Su Chi in an angry voice, Miss, if you have something to say, just come at me. Let go of Mr. Fong, Mr. Fong is very busy. Baldy was very angry. Baldy was very desperate. Was this society sick? How could little girls nowadays be so active? The social atmosphere was so good in the past. He had been sitting in front of the security booth for more than 10 years, and he had never experienced such an embarrassing thing. It was peaceful and steady, and he had never encountered such embarrassment and danger. Besides, with Baldy's keen eyes and extremely smart brain, how could he not know what the little devil in front of him was thinking? She wanted to hook up with Fong Yen. This was absolutely not allowed. Fong Yen was Principal Lu's. Fong Yen was his brother, and he was Principal Lu's man. Therefore, he was the brother of Principal Lu's man. As long as Fong Yen was there, he could be the head of security until he retired. If Fong Yen was seduced by some little goblin inside or outside the school, Principal Lu would be angry. Wouldn't he be the head of security on his head in minutes? Who asked him to be Fong Yen's brother? No, he absolutely couldn't let them get away with it. He couldn't even think about it, and he couldn't even try. Baldy had already decided, for the sake of his official hat, he was even willing to bear the humiliation and sacrifice his clean body. It was really hard to be a man these days. Baldy was very sad and angry, but his attitude was very firm. Unfortunately, there was no place for him to use his hot-bloodedness. Because Su Chi didn't look at him at all. From the beginning to the end, her eyes were fixed on Fong Yan's face that was too calm. I really want to know what you have experienced, Su Chi said with a smile. A normal man, when a little girl takes the initiative to pursue him, and it's a girl who is not too ugly, won't he more or less be secretly happy or moved? Why don't you have any strange emotions? Sitting there, he looked like a monk with 6 pure and unmoved hearts. Fong Yen looked at Su Chi with a warm smile on his lips and said, What you did, someone else has done it before, and she was braver than you. That day, the wind was gentle and the sun was bright. She wore a white shirt and a blue skirt. Her eyes were soft, but there was also a sense of ambition in them. She stood on the podium and said in a clear voice in front of the whole class, I want to be closer to you and see you more clearly. That day, it was drizzling and the ancient alley was quiet and secluded. She was wearing a white cheongsam with floral patterns and holding an oil paper umbrella as she walked over. Her red high heels knocked on the stone pavement and also knocked on the man's heart. Over and over again until he was exhausted. She fell into Fong Yan's arms and said, I'm not a prop, I'm the female lead. The 10 feet abyss was attacked, and they were kidnapped. Their lives were in danger. When he was fighting with someone, a bullet was shot at the back of his heart. She used her thin and weak body to pounce on him. Her white shirt was stained with blood, but she smiled sweetly and said, I'm not as good as her, so I can only help you block the knife. The ingenious maintenance at the airport, the patient waiting in the wind and snow, the dozens of miles of walking in Yanjing City at night, the bowl of lamb stew noodles, and the parting words, I wanted to repay you before, but now I want to protect you. That kind of deep love that moved the heaven and earth, that kind of selfless sacrifice that penetrated deep into the bones, day after day, year after year, when did it ever stop? A smile that shocked the immortals, as ethereal as a god. Looking back once, can make a person immersed in it for a lifetime. Su Chi's appearance had no meaning to Fong Yen. If he had to find a meaning, it would be that he missed Qin Etienne very much. The person who hid his figure behind the scenes, but became the biggest support that supported Chao Yan and himself. Fang Yan was not a fool, nor was he an idiot. If it wasn't for the Qin family support, how could the Jiang family still be helpless against him? If it wasn't for the close relationship between him and Qin Etienne, they could have used an even more extreme method to solve this transaction. Qin Etienne. Qin Etienne. No one was Qin Etienne, only Qin Etienne was Qin Etienne. I don't have time. Fang Yan directly refused. These students were too dangerous, he didn't want to have too much interaction with them. I knew you would say that. Su Qi didn't care at all. She took out an envelope from her bag and said, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's Treading on Snow and Searching for Plum classical music concert. I'm sure you wouldn't want to miss it, right? Fang Yan was stunned. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's concert? Those two girls came back to watching? What? Baldy's eyes widened, and he said excitedly, You mean the Arasima group? Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin? They're going to hold a concert in Huaqing? How come I didn't know about this? Oh my god, they're famous stars from our Huaqing, I really like them. Oh right, miss, is that their concert ticket in your hand? Seeing Fang Yan's slightly surprised expression, Su Qi thought Fang Yan was moved. She knew that going too far was as bad as not going far enough, so she wouldn't force him. Instead, she put the envelope on the table in front of Fang Yan, and said with a smile, This is a good location, let's go enjoy this musical feast together. Su Qi waved her hand, and said, Goodbye, Mr. Fang. Then, she turned and walked towards the direction of the classroom. She walked slowly, and didn't care when the bell rang for a long time. When Su Qi was far away, Baldy's face was full of excitement, and his eyes were shining as he looked at Fang Yan, and said, Mr. Fang, I know you have something to do tonight, and someone needs to take care of Principal Lu, how about? Fang Yan looked at Baldy, and said, Take it. Thank you, Mr. Fang. Baldy grabbed the concert ticket, and shouted excitedly, That's great, I love Arasima so much. Those two beautiful girls, sitting there in ancient clothes, they make me forget all my worries, they're my idols. What do you think I should wear to meet them tonight? I did buy a suit during Chinese New Year, but the color is too dark, it makes me look too old. Fang Yan originally wanted to take Baldy to see the two little girls, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, but after seeing Baldy's performance, he gave up this irrational idea. This guy was really embarrassing. After Fang Yixing died in battle, Xia took Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to visit him at Swallow Dock. The two little girls accompanied Fang Yan at Swallow Dock for a long time, and they never left Fang Yan's mother, Lu Wan. Because the last time they came, Lu Wan also liked them the most, and treated them as her own daughters. Later, when they returned to the capital to study, they often went to Swallow Dock to visit Fang Yan. Later, they became busier and busier, and the number of times they came to visit Fang Yan also decreased. At that time, Fang Yan rarely spoke, and it was the two of them who surrounded Fang Yan and chatted. They said they learned Guzheng, they said they learned Sun, Panshao, and Guqin. They talked about who they had learned from, and which master had taught them. They said they participated in some program with Sister Xia, and the live performance was very intense. They said they wanted to go out to practice, and Sister Xia said she wanted to make a group for them. Even though Fang Yan had been mourning in Swallow Dock for 3 years, he still knew how popular the two little girls, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, were now. Fang Yan gave Su Qi's ticket to Baldy, but he still decided to come to see Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's Looking for Plum in the Snow concert. He wanted to see their growth over the years, and see their glory tonight. They called him teacher, so he wanted to witness all kinds of beauty of his students. He came in a joyful mood. For many people, the tickets to the Arasima group's concert were hard to get. For the current Fang Yan, if he wanted a ticket to the concert, it was just a matter of saying a word. Fang Yan just mentioned it to Lu Chaoga, and Qi Ning went out and brought back a stack of tickets. Lu Chaoga's injury had not recovered, and she was not willing to come out to participate in such activities. She also wanted to talk to Fang Yan and his students. Fang Yan could only come alone. He held the thick stack of concert tickets and didn't know who to give it to. Fang Yan drove the car to the venue of the concert, Tianhe Music Hall. As the car approached Tianhe City, he saw a large number of fans in Hanfu or Cheongsam rushing towards the direction of the music hall. Most of them were very young, and their faces were full of excitement and joy. Fang Yan had just seen such an expression on Baldy's face. Some people said that classical music was too niche. Except for a small number of fans, it was difficult to walk into the ordinary people, and it was difficult to walk into the hearts of young people. But now Fang Yan understood that it was not that classical music was too niche, but that it had not encountered really good music. It was not difficult to walk into the hearts of young people, but you had to find a way to make young people like you and accept you. Fang Yan saw the success of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin from the eyes of those young people, and saw the success of classical music. He also saw the success of Summer. That superstar-like figure, when she stood at the peak of Hua Xia's music, still shouldered a more important responsibility and mission. She wanted to lead Hua Xia classical music to stand at the peak of world music. Such a beautiful thing, such a magical treasure, she should not be annihilated in the long river of history, but should bloom with a more dazzling brilliance. Jiang Qin, I love you Yuan Lin, it's you Arasima, I love you, Arasima, my heart. The fan group held the love banners of the Arasima group and the ancient costumes of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, and shouted from time to time. Fang Yan smiled, parked the car in the parking lot, and walked towards the VIP passage of the music hall. At this moment, a beautiful little girl blocked in front of Fang Yan. Chapter 487. The girl looked young, but she had heavy makeup on and was wearing a sexy short skirt that did not match her image at all. The girl stood in front of Fang Yan and asked with a sweet voice, "Uncle, are you also here to see the Arasima concert?" Fang Yan nodded and looked at the girl with a puzzled expression. "Do we know each other?" The girl giggled and extended her hand to Fang Yan. "We didn't know each other before, but can't we get to know each other now? My name is Lu Yi. How should I address uncle?" Fang Yan was sure he didn't know this girl, so he didn't shake hands with her. He looked at the girl and asked, "What's the matter?" The girl's expression suddenly became resentful. She stomped her feet and said, "Uncle, why are you so annoying? I just want to get to know you. I've already extended my hand, but you don't even shake hands with me. I asked for your name, but you don't say it. Are you a gentleman? You don't know how to be kind to the fairer sex." Fang Yan looked at the girl and went around her to check the tickets. "This person is sick." "Hey, uncle," Lu Yi once again blocked in front of Fang Yan with a very professional smile on her face. "Uncle, I saw you came to see the Arasima concert alone. Don't you think it's boring without a female companion? I'll go in with you, okay?" Fang Yan looked at the girl and shook his head. "Thank you. I'm fine by myself." "Uncle," the girl shouted coquettishly. Seeing that Fang Yan wanted to leave, she grabbed Fang Yan's arm and said, "Can you take me in? I also want to see the Arasima concert. Let's go watch the concert first, then go out for supper, okay?" Fang Yan thought for a bit and stopped to look at the girl in front of him. "Which school are you from?" Fang Yan asked. Lu Yi's eyes looked away in panic and said, "Uncle, why are you asking me which school I'm from? Don't you like students? Don't all the uncles nowadays like to date students? I'm asking you which school are you from?" Fang Yan raised his voice and said with a stern expression. Lu Yi's body trembled. She didn't dare to refuse Fang Yan's question. She said softly, "I'm from the Huaqing Music Academy. Because I like the classical music of the Arasima so much, I wanted to follow you in to have a look. If the one you met today wasn't me, but any other man, you would have begged to go in with them, wouldn't you?" Fang Yan asked coldly. "That's not it," Lu Yi explained in a low voice. "I've been standing here for a long time. Those who can enter the VIP passage are all wealthy people. In their eyes, a ticket isn't worth much. I'm not the kind of man who would beg for a ticket. I'm looking for a man who is pleasing to the eye and comes alone. Such a man generally won't reject a female companion, and then go for supper. Fang Yen looked at the girl's thick eyeshadow and asked aloud. With a shy expression, Louis said, "Uncle, don't misunderstand. I only said to go for supper, I don't mean anything else. If you don't mean anything else, then do the men around you also don't?" Fang Yen asked in return. "I think it's okay. Rich people still have manners." Fang Yen sneered and said, "That's because you haven't seen rich people without manners. It doesn't feel good to be interrogated like this, right?" Fang Yen asked aloud. "Yes," Lu Yi said in a low voice. You didn't expect to meet a man like me?" They would either agree or directly refuse, because you're trading yourself as a commodity. Who would talk nicely to a commodity? Who would pay any attention to a commodity? There's nothing in this world that comes without sowing. If you want to gain something, you have to pay something. You want a ticket to watch the Arasima concert, so you have to pay with your dignity or something more important. Because you're a commodity, you don't have the right to bargain. "Uncle, I'm not going in with you. I'm going back to school right now," Louis said with red eyes. She wanted to leave. Fang Yan's words were so harsh that she felt like they were piercing her heart. "Wait," Fang Yan called out. Louis turned around to look at Fang Yan and asked, "Uncle, is there anything else?" "You're from Huaqing?" Fang Yan asked. From the girl's voice, he could tell she had a Huaqing accent. "Yes. My family is from Huaqing, but our family's financial situation isn't very good," Lu Yi said with a wronged voice. "Because your family's financial situation isn't very good, you want to take a shortcut? Call your parents," Fang Yan said. "What?" "Tell them you want to invite them to the Arasima concert, but do as I say." "But, don't make me repeat myself," Fang Yan said with a straight face. "It's a waste of my saliva. They'll think I'm trying to convince them." Lu Yi didn't ask anymore, took out her phone from her pocket and dialed her mother's number. After Lu Yi hung up, Fang Yan took out 3 extra tickets from his pocket and gave them to her, saying, "If you don't know how to love yourself, you'll never have self-respect. Accompany your parents to a concert, look at their faces, think about what they've done for you." Saying so, Fang Yan turned around and walked towards the VIP ticket counter. "Uncle, your name." Fang Yan waved his hand and quickly disappeared from Lu Yi's sight. When Lu Yi's parents arrived, they saw their daughter sitting on the steps of the concert hall in a daze. Their clothes were simple, their faces were deeply wrinkled. Just like countless ordinary parents of ordinary children. This was what real life was like. Lu Yi's mother pulled her daughter up from the ground, patted the dust off her dress and said, "Silly girl, why are you sitting on the ground? It's cold on the ground, it's not good for a girl's body, what if you freeze?" Lu Yi's father smiled, looked at the huge and luxurious building complex in front of him and said with some hesitation, "Xiao Tao, why did you want to invite Mom and Dad to listen to this?" "I said no, but your mom insisted that we come to see. How much does it cost? How about you and your mom go in, and I won't go in? I'll take a few laps by the river, and when you're done, we'll go back together." Lu Yi held back her tears, held her mother's hand and said with a smile, "It's free, this ticket is a gift from someone. You and my mom go in, I won't go in." "That won't do." "Or you and your mom go in, Dad," Lu Yi cried and said, "Just listen to me this time. You go in with my mom, I'll wait for you outside. We'll go home together later." Okay. I'll go in with your mom." Lu Yi's father saw his daughter crying and panicked, and quickly said, "Don't cry. I'll go in, okay? Dad, thank you." Lu Yi put the 2 tickets in her hand into her father's hand and said, "You guys go in quickly. The concert is about to start. You're in the VIP lounge. If you can't find a seat, ask the staff to take you in. Dad knows. This child, why did she start crying?" Lu Yi stood still, watching her parents walk into the concert hall one after another. She gave the remaining ticket in her hand to a girl who was looking for a target and said in a low voice, "If you don't know how to love yourself, you'll never have self-esteem." After saying that, she walked down the stairs. She will come in, rely on her own efforts to get in. Not in such a humiliating and cowardly way. In the backstage dressing room of the concert hall, countless staff members were busy nervously and orderly. This wasn't the first concert of the Arasima group, but it was the most important concert of the Arasima group. Because Huacheng was the hometown of the two members of the Arasima group, their advertising slogan was also, "Homecoming Journey." The girls who had been popular for the past 2 years were going to show their talent in front of their parents, their neighbors, their teachers, and their friends, and accept their judgment. The significance of this event was extraordinary. If the media in Huacheng were to scold or criticize after the performance, what would happen to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin? How would they, the team members, deal with this? Therefore, everyone was very serious, striving to make every detail perfect. The most relaxed should be the two people involved, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. They were sitting in front of the dressing table, doing their hair. "Lin, are uncle and auntie here today?" Jiang Qin, who was happily eating a box of strawberries, asked. "They're here." Yuan Lin answered without looking up. "I've already reserved the best seats for them. How could they not come when their precious daughter is playing in front of their house?" Not only did they come, but they also paid for the tickets out of their own pockets. They even invited our family's aunts and relatives who couldn't be further away. Now do you understand why our Huacheng's tickets sell out so quickly? Because our old man booked the whole place. I don't believe it. Jiang Qin said with a smile, "Our other tickets are also selling very well." "Did your family book the whole place at that time?" "But my parents are here today, and they invited a lot of relatives to come and support. They've probably met and chatted by now." "I really want to go and chat with them." "Yes. My mom's physique has a tendency to grow. I told her to be careful, but she said she's fat now because she's relaxed. She even said that I'm biased. Why can my dad be fat but not her? Your mom is so interesting. I miss the braised pork trotters she made." "I miss it too," Jiang Qin said. Her thoughts drifted far away, and she said, "Mr. Fong returned to Huacheng, I know. I wanted to send him an invitation, I thought about it too. But, I'm afraid he hasn't gotten over it yet. Why should I make things difficult for him? He's been through too much these years. We met Sister Xia Tian because of Mr. Fong, and it's because of Mr. Fong that we embarked on this path," Yuan Lin said with a sigh. Her gaze finally shifted away from the mobile game. "If only Mr. Fong could come to our concert, that would be great." "Yes." The strawberry in Jiang Qin's mouth suddenly became tasteless. She threw the strawberry box on the dressing table with some annoyance and said, "If only Mr. Fong came to our concert, that would be great. I really hope Mr. Fong could come." Chapter 488. Fong Yan's seat was on the second floor of the music hall, which was a small, independent box. These private rooms were specially prepared for celebrities, and dignitaries who did not want to be seen by the outside world. The reservation fee for each private room was very expensive. The box was separated by walls on both sides, and the outer layer was guarded by a wooden door. Only the direction facing the stage was empty. You could sit in the seats and enjoy the show, or stand up and lean on the railing to enjoy the performance at a closer distance. If you were well prepared in advance, you could even open a bottle of red wine or brandy and savor it with your family and friends. There were other boxes on both sides of the box, but no one needed to greet each other. Fong Yan looked at the seat. This was a small room for 4 people, and he might meet Lu Yi and her parents later. The concert hadn't started yet, but the audience was already full. The sound of mountains and seas could be heard from time to time, and the names of Jiang Qin, Yuan Lin, and Arasima resounded in his ears. It seemed that these 2 little girls were really prosperous, and their careers were developing very fast. Fong Yan sat alone for a while, and a pair of old people with vicissitudes of life walked in timidly. They saw that there were already people in the box, so they stood at the door and didn't dare to come in. But they knew that this was their seat, and they didn't want to leave. For a moment, they didn't know what to do. Fang Yan grinned and took the initiative to greet them and said, "Are you Lu Yi's parents?" "Yes. We are," Lu Yi's father said. On such an occasion, although he was also very nervous, it was still necessary to stand up and greet them. "Your seat is here. Come in," Fang Yan said with a smile. Lu Yi's parents came in and sat on the two sofas farthest from Fang Yan. Although they couldn't be too far from Fang Yan. In their hearts, those who could watch the performance in such a place must be famous people. They had no experience in dealing with such people, and they didn't know what to say. However, it was also rude not to say anything. Lu Yi's father looked at Fang Yan and said, "Sir, did you give Lu Yi the concert tickets?" Fang Yan nodded and said, "Yes." "You are?" Lu Yi's parents looked at each other and began to guess Fang Yan's identity. For all the parents in the world, any strange man around their daughter was dangerous. "I am Lu Yi's teacher," Fang Yan said with a smile. He was indeed Lu Yi's teacher. He taught her how to win the respect of others. He taught her how to be a person. What Fang Yan didn't expect was that Lu Yi didn't accompany her parents. It seemed that this girl was more sensitive and proud than he had imagined. If she had really changed, then these 2 tickets to the concert were too valuable. It might be worth more than the value of the whole concert. "I happen to have extra tickets on hand. I saw Lu Yi at the entrance of the concert hall, so I gave her the ticket." So its teacher, Lu Yi's parents' hearts that were hanging in their throats suddenly fell to the ground. The two of them clasped their hands tightly. There was a kind of relief after the lingering fear. "Hello, teacher. It's good to be a teacher. Are you teaching music at the Academy of Music?" Fang Yan smiled and didn't answer their question. He said, "I thought she would come in with her classmates. I didn't expect her to give the tickets to you." Lu Yi is a filial child. Lu Yi's parents' faces were full of joy. Lu Yi's mother finally couldn't help but open her mouth and said, "Our Tao Tao has been sensible since she was young. There is only one apple at home, but she knows to divide it into 3 parts. She gives the biggest part to Dad, saying that Dad works hard. The second biggest part is for me, saying that it's hard for me to cook every day. She eats the smallest part. It's because our family's condition isn't good that the child has suffered with us. The greatest gift is giving. You give her everything you have, how can she suffer?" Fang Yan comforted them with a smile. "You see, now that she's grown up, doesn't she know how to repay kindness?" "Yes." This child, Lu Yi's father, couldn't stop smiling. He said, I said I didn't understand this and let her and her mother come in, but she didn't agree. She still has a great youth, and there are plenty of opportunities to enjoy in the future. She hopes to give you what she thinks is the best, so that you 2 old people can enjoy it." Fang Yan echoed the pride in their words and said, "The concert is about to begin. I won't bother you 2 anymore. If you need anything, you can tell me." Fang Yan could see the restraint in their words and the inferiority in their bones. Every word Fang Yan said to them was like a punishment. At this time, the best way was to let them keep silent and seriously enjoy the next performance. "Yes. Yes," Lu Yi's father said while rubbing his hands. He wanted to step forward and shake hands with Fang Yan, but he felt that it was a little inappropriate to do so. In order not to make them nervous, Fang Yan deliberately walked to the edge of the railing of the box and stood there. He planned to stand and listen to the concert. "Young Master Fu, let me tell you, these 2 little girls are still very young. Not only are they pretty, their skin is so fresh and juicy. You can even pinch them and water will come out. Aren't you tired of playing with that little girl from before? Do you want to change the goods? I know you like this kind of girl." A frivolous and greasy man's voice came from the railing of the box next door. "What? Liang Dachang, what kind of unorthodox methods do you have? A gloomy voice said jokingly. Hey, as long as young Master Fu agrees, I'll settle these two girls for you tonight. What? Which star comes to our watching to visit? Won't they give us a taste of sweetness? Didn't they say that these two girls have a strong background? They've been in the industry for several years, and no one dares to have any ideas about them. What background can they have? Isn't it just because she calls Xia Tian's sister? There are so many artists in Xia Tian's company, can she take care of them all? Besides, let alone Xia Tian's sister, even if Xia Tian comes personally, as long as young Master Fu says the word, I can also think of a way to get rid of her. Bullsh * T Heavenly King and Queen, that's what those little brats call them. We won't put them in our eyes, if we want to play, it'll be 2 kings and 1 queen, the conversation continued, but Fang Yan's expression was as cold as frost. When Xia Tian wanted to bring Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin into the entertainment industry, Fang Yan was worried that something like this would happen. But Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin both liked it, and the fact that they wanted to promote classical music was indeed praiseworthy. After vaguely knowing some of Xia Tian's background, he thought that there wouldn't be any blind guy in Hua Xia who would have ideas about Xia Tian or Xia Tian's disciple. Therefore, Fang Yan finally relented and helped Xia Tian convince Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's family. From the conversation between Liang Dachang and young Master Fu, Fang Yan also heard that Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin had been having a smooth life these years. With Xia Tian's protection, no one dared to touch them. However, they weren't afraid of those with a high level, but they were afraid of those with a low vision. Those who knew Xia Tian's identity wouldn't touch Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, but people like Liang Dachang and young Master Fu who didn't know Xia Tian's background were likely to use dangerous methods to force the 2 girls to submit. Fang Yan was about to make a move when suddenly there was an earth-shattering uproar below the stage. Jiang Qin, I love you, Yuan Lin, fate comes to you, Arasima, the stage, which was pitch black just a moment ago, was suddenly lit up. The concert had officially begun. The place where the stage was originally located had become a fairyland filled with wind and snow. It wasn't the background of an electronic screen, but a real man-made scenery. Snowflakes danced in the sky, and wintersweet flowers bloomed. There was a bamboo pavilion in the middle of the plum blossoms, and 2 girls in white and cyan palace dresses were laughing and playing in the pavilion. From time to time, there would be laughter that sounded like silver bells, and people couldn't help but curl up the corners of their lips. The scenery was fairyland, and the people were immortals. The immortals and fairyland complemented each other. The performance hadn't even started, but the visual effect presented by the Arasima team was already refreshing. I'm not playing anymore, I'm bored to death. The Cyan Fairy sat on the stone chair in the bamboo pavilion, threw the red embroidered ball in her hand into the snow, and said in a tired voice. The voice spread through the speakers, and Fang Yan could tell that it was Yuan Lin's voice. Sister, let's make a song. The White Fairy walked to the opposite side of the Cyan Fairy and said softly. This was Jiang Qin's voice. Make a song? What song? The Cyan Fairy was very tempted by her big sister's suggestion and asked with a smile. The White Fairy pointed at the scenery around them and said, We're here to admire the snow and flowers, so this song naturally has to be related to the white snow and the plum blossoms. How about we call this song, Looking for Plum Blossoms in the Snow? Sure. Then let's play out what we're feeling right now, and call the song, Looking for Plum Blossoms in the Snow? Wonderful. And so, the Cyan Fairy took out a long flute from her waist, put it to her lips, and began to play it. The sound of the flute was ethereal, and intoxicating. The White Fairy sat on the stone chair, reaching out her slender hand to play with a phoenix tail guzheng on the table. The sound was clear, like a mountain spring. The sound of the guzheng was very pleasing to the ear. And the best part was the combination of the flute and the guzheng. One was long and distant, the other lively and powerful. 2 different instruments, 2 different girls, the combination was enough to make people go crazy. Fang Yan gripped the railing tightly, and looked at the two girls who were performing seriously in the snow and plum blossoms forest with a face full of joy. These were his students, and he was very proud of their achievements today. Just like Lu Yi's parents, because their daughter gave the biggest piece of an apple to her parents, they had always remembered it for more than 10 years. He wanted to tell everyone in the world that they were his students. Young Master Fu, look, do you feel anything? Do you feel anything? I'll book them, and let them wear this palace dress when we're working. Chapter 489. Su Qi's private room was on the 3rd floor, directly facing the center of the stage. Sitting in this position, she could look down at the performance on the stage, belonging to the VIP of the VIPs. It was also the most expensive and prestigious position in the entire music hall. It was said that these seats were given to some very important people at the beginning. When Fang Yan asked for a ticket, even with Lu Chaoga's connections in Huacheng, he could only get a VIP room on the 2nd floor. Su Qi's private room was also for 4 people, but she was the only one who came to watch the concert. It could be seen that Su Qi had put on a lot of effort for this concert. She took off the Vermilion Bird Middle School sky blue uniform and changed into a long white dress with floral patterns, a pair of light blue, deep-waisted canvas shoes, and a small floral hat on her head. She looked delicate and fashionable. She didn't use too many accessories, and she didn't put on too much makeup. Because she knew better than anyone that a girl's most powerful weapon was youth. A girl's feelings were always poetry, and she was at the age of poetry. Su Qi sat in her seat and waited patiently, but the man still didn't show up until the concert began. She wanted to call Fang Yan to ask, but she found that she didn't have that man's number. Is this love? Su Qi thought, resting her chin on her hand. She actually fell in love with a school security guard? If this kind of thing was known by her classmates or her group of friends, they would definitely laugh at her, right? But, who cares? Right, he said that what he was doing had been done before, and it was done by someone more courageous than her. Who was that girl? Was she also a student? What an enchanting and charming uncle. Clang, the private room door was pushed open with great force. Su Qi's heart suddenly stopped, and she turned around with a face full of surprise. Then, the smile on her face froze. Baldy, dressed in a navy blue suit, stood at the door, sweating profusely. He looked at the girl and kept apologizing. I'm sorry. There's a concert tonight, so there's a traffic jam. When I got there, I couldn't find a place to park. I drove around the concert hall a few times and finally stopped in front of the store across the road. Suki did not hear what Baldy said. She only cared about one thing. Why are you here? That's me. Baldy looked at the girl in confusion and said seriously. Why you? Why not me? What about him? Oh, you mean Fang Yan? He's not free. He's not free. Su Qi's heart suddenly ached. He didn't have time. This reason really hurt his pride. Baldy walked over to Su Qi and sat down beside her. Don't be sad, he said. Fang Yan was very busy. When he got back, he still had to cook for the old principal. Didn't you want someone to watch the concert with you? It's the same if I accompany you. Just like you, I'm also a hardcore fan of Arasima. Baldy waved his hands in the air and shouted the slogan of Arasima's fans. Star, star, I love you. Star, star, we'll be together forever. Yeah. I'm not bragging. When it comes to appreciating classical music, I'm better than Fang Yan. It's different. Suki said. What's different? You're not good looking. Baldy opened his mouth again and again. He didn't know how to refute. In the private room on the 2nd floor, such a tragedy happened. What a masterpiece. A gloomy man's voice sounded. Beauty is the most beautiful. Beauty is pleasing to the eye. Beauty that can cause the downfall of a country will shock the world. They're not twins, but they're better than twins. Liang Dachang, my happy life is in your hands. Young Master Fu, it's a small matter. You've come from afar and our huaching has nothing to entertain you except some cheap seafood. Coincidentally, these two girls are huaching specialties. Why don't you go through the trouble of appraising them and see if they taste good? Huh, it's no problem. I'm willing to do this. Young Master Fu laughed heartily. Dachang is not bad. You're loyal. From now on, you'll be my good brother. Fang Yan's good mood disappeared. He used a bit of strength and grabbed a wooden plank from the wooden railing in front of him. He threw it in the direction of the voice coming from the private room next door. Ah, someone screamed. Who threw it at me? Who the hell threw it at me? Someone roared angrily. It was Liang Dachang, the pimp who wanted to introduce Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to young Master Fu. Young Master Liang, what's wrong? What happened? Blood, young Master Liang, your head is bleeding. The private room next door was in chaos. Damn it, search them row by row. I want to see who dares to go against me, Liang Dachang shouted hysterically. Dachang, don't be rash. There are too many people here, don't blow things up, young Master Fu comforted him. If things get out of hand, we won't be able to do anything. Liang Dachang seemed to be extremely afraid of this young Master Fu. Although he was still cursing, he could only suppress his anger for the time being. He also knew that if he asked his men to search the private rooms row by row, he would offend all the guests in the VIP rooms on the second and third floor. If the commotion was too big, the concert would be messed up by him. By then, everyone's attention would be on him. Even if he wasn't afraid, there was no need for him and his old man to be on the headlines, right? Damn unlucky. Liang Dachang cursed angrily. If I find out which bastard did this, I'll skin him alive. A cold murderous intent appeared in Fang Yan's eyes. If it wasn't for the sake of the concert going on normally, that piece of wood would have crippled someone or directly smashed their skull, killing them. If he hadn't shown mercy, did he think he would still have the chance to speak? That attack was just a small punishment. It had to be said that this was a high-standard concert. Fang Yan had heard Music Addict, one of the 7 addicts of Hua Xia, perform classical music live at the Maple Leaf Club. That kind of breathing could move people's emotions, and it made people's minds have endless associations. Along with the joy of the music, joy of joy, sorrow of sorrow. Deep down, tears streamed down one's face. With Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's current attainments, they naturally couldn't be compared to Music Addict. They were too young and had too little experience, so they couldn't perform a silent and sorrowful movement. But they took a different path. Since they couldn't perform sad music, then it had nothing to do with sadness. They just wanted to pass on happiness. Therefore, in their music, one could feel the wind singing, see the snowflakes dancing, and experience the magical process of plum trees growing and blooming quietly. They were 2 fairies who descended from heaven, chasing and playing in the snowflakes, happy and carefree. Clear joy and refreshing laughter spread along the way. One didn't need to think too much, and one didn't need to do much. One just needed to enjoy and laugh with them all the way. This was the feeling that Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin brought to the audience, and it was also the feeling that they brought to Fang Yan. Fang Yan thought that their choice back then was right, and their efforts were worth it. He liked this kind of music, and Hua Xia also needed this kind of music. It's so beautiful. Lu Yi's father praised and said enviously, if our Tao Tao could be like this in the future, how great would that be? It definitely can. Our daughter is so beautiful, and she studies so hard, teacher, don't you think so? Lu Yi's mother looked at Fang Yan expectantly and asked. They didn't understand music, but they simply believed in their daughter's excellence. This kind of belief was very firm, but also so lacking in confidence. So they hoped that there would be a professional who could give them some comments. It definitely can. Fang Yan turned around and smiled. As long as she continues to work hard. Thank you, teacher. Thank you, teacher. After Lu Yi's parents heard this simple and even exaggerated comment from Fang Yan, their faces flushed with excitement and they kept saying thank you. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin performed, treading on the snow to find plum blossoms, 3 lives, 3 worlds, greeting the Lord, and also sang several ancient songs on the stage. One of the songs was called Swallow Dock. The green bricks and gray tiles were their deepest concern. The affectionate and moving melody, the familiar and touching lyrics, made Fang Yan unable to extricate himself. This song was written and composed by Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. Before they sang, they said that they wanted to give this song to their teacher, their best friend, a very special person to them. Fang Yan knew that the person they were talking about was him. When he cared about them, they didn't forget him. At the end of the concert, the venue that had been quiet became noisy again. The fans who had just woken up from one classical feast after another were unwilling to leave. They shouted the names of Jiang Qin, Yuan Lin, and Arasima over and over again, and shouted encore again and again. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were also unwilling to leave. The two of them stood in the center of the stage with a microphone and bowed deeply to the audience below the stage. "We don't want to leave either." Jiang Qin raised the microphone and said, "It seems like it has just started. Why is it over already? Huaqing is our hometown, and you are our family." Yuan Lin said in a sweet voice. Before preparing for the concert in Huaqing, the staff were very nervous. They were worried that we would make mistakes and let our relatives in our hometown laugh at us. But Honey and I don't feel nervous at all, because you are our family. Even if we don't perform well, you will definitely forgive us. Who would be too harsh on their relatives? The applause below the stage was like thunder, accompanied by happy laughter. Chapter 490. Our parents are in Huaqing. Our family and friends are in Huaqing. We were born in Huaqing, grew up in Huaqing, and went to primary and secondary school in Huaqing. We met a very important man in our lives in Huaqing. Jiang Qin said sadly. There was a moment of silence, and then there was a tsunami of exclamations. "Sweetheart, who is that man? Who is that man? Sweetheart, are you guys in love? Please don't, goddess, you've broken my heart. Who is that man?" Wang Ku, the manager of Arasima backstage, was really anxious. He grabbed the shoulders of the staff next to him and shouted, "What are they talking about? What are they talking about? Ask her to stop." No one asked Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to stop, because Xia said that they were completely free on the stage. When they stood on the stage was theirs. Yuan Lin looked at Jiang Qin with a surprised expression. She didn't expect Jiang Qin to say that at this time. Jiang Qin's voice was a little sad. He said, "I don't mean to say it on purpose. It's just that when I return to this city, I can't help but smell his scent. You must not know that the reason why Yuan Lin and I took this path, the reason why we were able to stand on the stage of classical music, and the reason why we worked hard for such a goal, is also greatly related to him. I don't know if he came to our concert. Maybe he didn't. But I know he is in Huaqing, so I feel very at ease." The fans below the stage were even more crazy. They kept shouting Jiang Qin's name and asked Jiang Qin who the man was. "He is my teacher," Jiang Qin said with a sly smile. "A teacher who influenced my life." Near the front of the stage, Sister Li looked at her daughter's expression and sighed deeply. Jiang Dahai held his wife's chubby hand and said, "The child has grown up and has her own ideas. Let her be." "I know," Sister Li said with some annoyance. "I'm not against Qin and Fang Yan being together. Honey was now an adult, and she had the right to choose her own life. What I'm worried about is, where is Fang Yan now? I haven't seen him for a few years. I called my daughter to ask, but she didn't say anything. I don't know what happened. Fang Yan is a good kid." Jiang Dahai looked at Sister Li with a puzzled expression and said, "Didn't you dislike Fang Yan before? You even chased her out for no reason. Why did you change your attitude now?" What do you know? Auntie Lee said angrily. I didn't like Fong Yen in the past because she was still young. We couldn't let her be with Fong Yen. Now that our dear one has grown up, why can't he treat our dear one well? Look at Honey's pitiful face. You weren't this sad when I rejected you when you confessed to me, right? Cough, 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 Jiang Dahai coughed violently. The topic of his wife was too explosive, and he couldn't take it anymore. I really envy you guys, Jiang Qin said with a smile. You guys can live in the same city as him, look at the same sky, breathe the same air, but I have to fly around every day, and the time I can stay in Huaqing is too little. If you see him, you must say hello to me. Say hello to Mr. Fong, Jiang Qin said she misses you. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin bowed to the audience below the stage again, and they left amidst the reluctance and shouts of the audience below the stage. Fong Yen didn't expect that there would be such a scene at the end of the concert. Jiang Qin, this fearless girl, was really capable of doing anything. But in this way, wouldn't he be in the headlines tomorrow? Fong Yen completely believed in the paparazzi's sense of smell and ability. Jiang Qin said the words Mr. Fong, and Jiang Qin had been in a scandal with him before she became famous. At that time, it even became negative news in the newspapers. As long as those people had the intention to find out, they would definitely be able to find these clues. Fong Yen just wanted to be a quiet little security guard. The concert ended and the crowd began to disperse. Lu Yi's parents stood up and looked at Fong Yen. They wanted to say something but didn't know what to say. Fong Yen took the initiative to walk over and shook hands with Lu Yi's father. He said with a smile, "Take care of yourself." "Thank you, teacher." "Thank you," Lu Yi's father thanked him profusely. "You have a good daughter." Fong Yen said with a smile, turned around and walked out of the private room. He went to the private room next door, ready to talk to Liang Dachang and young Master Fu about professional issues such as the sense of music and the multiple forms of expression of classical music, but found that there was no one inside. They left early. Fong Yan's eyes turned cold and he quickly walked downstairs. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin retreated backstage. Yuan Lin took Jiang Qin's hand and said, "Sweetheart, why did you say it in front of so many people? Aren't you afraid?" All of a sudden, I felt something. Jiang Qin was a little depressed and said in a low voice, "We have worked so hard and risked our lives for the past few years. We want to show him our best side. We want him to know our talent and let him recognize our excellence. But when we have the opportunity to stand in the center of the stage and have the ability to prove ourselves to him, he doesn't know where he went. So what if today's concert is a success? I still feel empty in my heart. Lin, even if we do it, even if we really bring classical music to the world stage, but what's the point of that for me?" Sigh, Yuan Lin sighed softly. "Let's go see Mr. Fong tomorrow. We'll treat him to a meal, treat him to a drink, even if we don't do anything, we'll just watch him quietly and accompany him." "Okay," Jiang Qin said with red eyes. "We'll go see him tomorrow. Wherever he goes, we'll go there. We'll pay for his meals and pour for his drinks. He doesn't say anything and does nothing. We'll just sit beside him and say nothing and do nothing. Just like when we were in Swallow Dock." The two girls made such an agreement, and their moods became cheerful again. Wang Ku walked over and hugged the two girls of Arasima warmly. She said with a smile, "Sweetheart, Lin, congratulations. Today's performance was amazing. The whole Huaqing will be proud of you, thank you." Yuan Lin said with a smile. "If only there wasn't a last performance," Wang Ku said. This was a subtle reminder and a warning. Jiang Qin said softly, "Sister Wang, I'm sorry for making things difficult for you, it's okay." Wang Ku said with a smile. "What's there to make things difficult for? Isn't it my job? I just want to talk to him." Jiang Qin said. "I think he'll definitely hear it in this way." Wang Ku didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, My lady, not only Mr. Fong heard it. The whole Huaqing heard it. Just wait and see. Tomorrow morning, all the newspapers in Huaqing will be filled with news about you. I don't care. Sister Xia Tian said before, don't care about what the outside world thinks. We just need to focus on our own music. Yes. Don't worry about it. You just need to focus on your music. Don't you have Sister Wang to do the rest? If Sister Wang can't do it well, there's still President Xia, right? Am I right? At this moment, a group of people walked toward the dressing room backstage. The security guards went forward to stop them. The leader, a man with a buzz cut, slapped them in the face and scolded, "Are you blind? Even I can't go in?" The security guard was slapped in the face. When he was about to fight back, the two bodyguards in black behind the man with the brush cut rushed over. One on the left and the other on the right, they rushed into the crowd and knocked down the security guards who were in charge of guarding the place. Clang! The man with a buzz cut pushed open the door of the dressing room and saw Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin chatting inside. He couldn't help but be amused. He turned around and said to the man with glasses behind him, "Young Master Fu, it seems that you have good luck with women today. I was worried that they would run away. If that was the case, it would take some time. Now they are still here. Shall we talk to them now?" Fu Lei adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose and said with a smile, "Be polite." "Hey, got it," Liang Dachang said with a smile. He walked up to Wang Ku, took out a business card from his pocket and handed it over. He said, "I'm Liang Dachang, the chairman of the Dachang Group. You can easily find out what I do as long as you go out and ask around." Wang Ku usually had Xia Tian's support, so she really didn't take Liang Dachang seriously. She stood in front of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin with her slightly plump body and said with a smile, "Young Master Liang, why have so many of you barged in? What business do you have?" Liang Dachang pointed at Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin and asked, "Are you their agent?" "Yes." "Wang Ku." "Good. Wang Ku, let's discuss something. I have a distinguished guest who came from afar and likes watching their show. I want to take them out for a midnight snack. Why don't you name a price?" Wang Ku smiled coldly and said, "Young Master Liang, I'm afraid I can't agree to this. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin have worked hard for most of the night and are very tired now. They just said that they wanted to go back to sleep. Why don't we find another opportunity?" Slap. Wang Ku was also slapped in the face. Liang Dachang pointed at Wang Ku and shouted, "Who do you think you are? Don't be shameless. I've already said it today. If you agree, I'll take them. If you don't agree, I'll still take them. I want to see what you can do to me." Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin hurried forward to support Wang Ku to prevent her from falling to the ground. Jiang Qin took a step forward and said, "You can go. We won't go out with you for a midnight snack. Little girl, this kind of thing is not up to you to decide." Liang Dachang laughed arrogantly. "The people that I, Liang Dachang, want to take care of have never failed." This sentence is very imposing. I like it. A thin man stood at the door and said with a smile, "I'm the same as you. The people I want to hit have never failed." Chapter 491. Hearing that familiar voice, Jiang Qin was stunned for a moment. She thought that it was her illusion. Just like the countless previous experiences, she would hear Fang Yan's voice when she was in danger, she would hear Fang Yan's voice when she was tired from playing the piano, she would hear Fang Yan's voice when she was shopping alone while drinking tea, and she would hear Fang Yan's voice when she woke up from her dreams. Could it be the same as those mistakes, another beautiful illusion? Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked over with a puzzled expression. When they found that the thin man standing at the door was indeed the Fang Yan that they were thinking about, their faces immediately bloomed with a moving smile. Mr. Fang came, Mr. Fang really came. Mr. Fang came to enjoy their concert. Mr. Fang listened to their singing and watched their performance. Mr. Fong knew about Jiang Qin's confession on stage and the deep-rooted longing. Mr. Fong, Jiang Qin was shy and happy at the same time. Her eyes were red as she shouted Fong Yan's name. Mr. Fong, you're here. Yuan Lin cried in surprise. Why didn't you tell us? We were worried that you didn't have time. Mr. Fong? Fong Yan? Wang Ku looked at Fong Yan seriously. He was a handsome man. However, good-looking men were a dime a dozen in the entertainment industry, so it was not unusual. However, Wang Ku did not dare to neglect this young man. He was not only the man that the two little devils, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, kept talking about, but also Miss Xia Tian's close friend. It was said that Miss Xia Tian would take the initiative to visit their home every year during the Spring Festival. Just based on the last point, she had to give him enough respect and enthusiasm. Wang Ku covered her cheek that was slapped by Liang Dachang and took the initiative to greet Fong Yan and said, Mr. Fong, I'm Wang Ku, the agent of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. These people suddenly broke in and said they wanted to take Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to eat supper. I refused their rude request, but they still hit me. Hello, Miss Wang. Fong Yan greeted Wang Ku and said, Don't worry, they can't take anyone away. They can't leave. Perhaps it was because Fong Yan's words were too arrogant, or maybe it was because Fong Yan's expression was too serious when he said it. Liang Dachang and his companions laughed. Young Master Liang, did you hear that? He said we can't take anyone away, no one can leave. Ha, it's so funny, they don't care about us at all. Young Master Liang, this person is very interesting, you can't kill him in one go, you have to keep him and play with him slowly. Who does he think he is? Teacher? No wonder the quality of students nowadays is getting worse, it's because of such a stupid teacher. Fu Lei didn't laugh, he looked at Fong Yan strangely, guessing what relationship he had with the legendary man. Isn't it funny? Fong Yan asked with a smile. It's too funny. Liang Dachang applauded and said, My brothers said, we can't kill you too early. That won't be fun. Your words have reminded me of something. Fong Yan walked toward Liang Dachang step by step and said, If the game is very fun, it's best not to clear it in one go. Otherwise, it's easy to feel down. The smile on Liang Dachang's face became cold, and he stared at Fong Yan with a gaze as vicious as a vulture. He knew what Fong Yan wanted to do, but he didn't care at all, because what Fong Yan wanted to do was also what he wanted to do. Without saying anything, the two bodyguards behind Liang Dachang surrounded Fong Yan from both sides. They were the ones who made a move against the security guards outside and got rid of all the people who were blocking the way. Who? The man in black on the left didn't say a word and punched at Fong Yan's left temple. The temple was an important point of the human body, but it was also the weak point of the human body. If it was important, it was weak. Fong Yan could sense the strength he used. If this punch was completely hit, it might cause the temple to explode, serious injuries or even death. He wanted to kill Fong Yan, but Fong Yan didn't hold back. Fong Yan also punched. It was a punch later than his punch, and a punch lighter than his punch. It was also a punch that was even more casual than the one he had thrown. However, the punch arrived first. Fong Yan punched out and his fist fiercely hit the bridge of the black-clothed man's nose. Crack, the man in black's nose broke, and the bones in his face caved in. His body flew out, and blood sprayed in the air like a red fountain. At the same time that the man in black on the left flew out, the man in black on the right kicked at Fong Yan's crotch. This kid was even more vicious. He wanted to destroy the roots of Fong Yan's descendants. Bang! Fong Yan clamped his legs, and the foot that the man in black kicked over was sandwiched between his legs. The man in black exerted all his strength, but the foot didn't move as if it was inlaid. He couldn't move his lower body, and his upper body rushed toward Fong Yan. An uppercut went straight for Fong Yan's eyes. When Fong Yan's eyes hurt, he would naturally let go of his legs. Fong Yan stood where he was without moving. His left hand punched out lightly. Bang! there was a muffled sound. Because one of the man in black's legs was clamped by Fang Yen, his body was fixed in place, and he couldn't fly. His upper body fell backward, and then he was pulled back at an even faster speed. He looked at Fang Yen in horror, and then he opened his mouth and screamed. The man in black's arm made cracking sounds, as if every inch of the bones in his arm was breaking. "You have bad breath," Fang Yen said. "Pa." Fang Yen punched out, and the man in black finally broke free as he wished. However, his body fell heavily to the ground, and then he couldn't get up again. This was what it truly meant to be unstoppable. This was an instant kill in terms of realm. Fang Yen looked at Liang Dachang, and asked with a smile, "The mighty young master Liang only brings these 2 rookie bodyguards when you go out?" "They're not rookies," Liang Dachang said through gritted teeth. "How could they be rookie bodyguards?" One of them was a famous fighter in Huaqing's MMA world, and was only recruited by him after he became famous. The other was a member of Mount Song's Shaolin Temple's martial arts team, and used to perform martial arts on stages all over the world. Later, because he couldn't stand poverty, he retired early, and became his loyal confidant. Just now, it was the 2 of them who took care of those annoying bodyguards. At that time, they were full of power and gave people endless confidence. How could they be defeated so easily now? Fang Yen smiled, and said, "These bodyguards aren't rookies. Looks like your definition of rookies is very special." Fang Yen walked toward Liang Dachang again, and said, "Do you have any other rookie bodyguards? Or rather, do you have any bodyguards who aren't rookies?" "If there aren't any, I'm going to beat someone up." "I just said, I've never failed to beat someone up I wanted to." "You won't disappoint me, right?" Liang Dachang stared at Fang Yen fiercely, and said, "Brat, do you know who I am?" "I know." Liang Dachang. "A bastard who's willing to be a pimp in order to please his master." Fang Yen said aloud, "Only people who beat people up need to announce their name. People who get beaten up don't need to let everyone in the world know who they are, right? I don't care who you are. If you dare to touch a hair on me, I promise I'll let your corpse lie on the street." "Really? So I'm dead for sure?" Fang Yen pointed at the gauze wrapped around Liang Dachang's forehead, and said, "I threw that piece of wood. How do you feel now?" "So it's you." Liang Dachang's anger soared again, and he pointed at Fang Yen and scolded, "I said, I'll make you wish you were dead, Pa." Fang Yen slapped Liang Dachang's face, and asked, "Is this the feeling of living worse than death that you said?" Arasima's concert was over, so Fang Yen didn't have to worry about bringing adverse effects to them. Fang Yen was already furious, and now he witnessed them running to the backstage locker room to snatch people. How could he be merciful? Fang Yen did use a lot of strength in this slap. Liang Dachang only felt a buzzing sound in his ears, and his mouth, nose, and ears were all bleeding, but his mind was blank, and he couldn't hear what Fang Yen said. "Mr. Fang," Wang Ku was shocked. Although she had Xia Tian's support, she wasn't afraid of anyone's provocation. She had never hit someone like Fang Yen did. As the saying goes, a powerful dragon can't suppress a local snake. No matter how powerful Xia Tian was in Yanjing City, this was Hua City. If the local snakes in Hua City wanted to ruin your plans and cause trouble for you, you would really be suppressed everywhere. It was easy to see the king of hell, but difficult to deal with the little devils. "Pa." Fang Yen slapped him again, and said, "Being humiliated by me to the point where you want to die but can't, is this the feeling of living worse than death that you can't forget?" "Pa." Fang Yen slapped him again, and said, "Can you still hear me?" "It's okay if you can't, as long as you know you're still being beaten." When Fang Yen was about to slap him again, Fu Lei finally spoke and shouted, "Mr. Fang, wait a minute, Pa." Fang Yen pulled his hand back down in midair, and then looked up at Fu Lei, and asked, "What did you just say?" Liang Dachang suffered another solid slap, and when he was about to fall to the ground in a daze, he was supported by his friends behind him. Fu Lei was stunned for a while, and said, "I said, please wait a minute, Mr. Fang, but it doesn't matter now." "Then can I continue?" Fang Yen said with a smile. He walked towards Liang Dachang again. He had only just warmed up. How could he finish so quickly? Chapter 492. Wait, wait, wait. Fu Lei repeatedly shouted for him to stop. He stood in front of Fang Yen to prevent Fang Yen from beating Liang Dachang, who had lost his ability to speak, and said, Mr. Fang is Teacher Fang Yen? Fang Yen was almost amused by this kid. He looked at Fu Lei and said, this is a very unique way of chatting up people. Yes, I am Fang Yen, I used to be a teacher, but now I am a security guard. Fu Lei did not laugh, but looked at Fang Yen with a more serious expression and said, Mr. Fang and young Master Jiang are old friends? Young Master Jiang? Are you talking about that idiot Jiang Junling? Fang Yen asked with a sneer. He didn't like people saying that he and Jiang Junling were old friends. It made it seem like he had absorbed a lot of light just by being with him. As soon as this remark came out, countless people present gasped. They didn't know who Fang Yen was, but it was impossible for them not to know who Jiang Junling was. A son should be like Jiang Junling, and an adopted son must be like Qinitian. These words were too loud and too intimidating. Whether they had entered that level, come into contact with the characters of that realm or the two protagonists of this sentence, it did not affect their worship and fear of these two characters. What kind of person was Jiang Junling? They knew very well in their hearts. What kind of person was Qinitian? They also knew very well in their hearts. Their circle of friends was loose and hierarchical. It was difficult for a millionaire's friend to be a billionaire. In the same way, it was difficult for them to be friends with people in the circle of Jiang Junling and Qinitian. From their standpoint, they did not dare to offend those two legendary figures. However, this guy who was called Little Teacher by the Arasima group actually said, Jiang Junling, that idiot. Just based on this sentence alone, if he didn't have enough strength to protect himself, maybe they could go to the Pearl River to retrieve his body tomorrow morning. However, he said it out loud, and his face was full of disdain, as if it was shameful to be associated with someone like Jiang Junling. If they were to say that this fellow was just some subject teacher from a school in Huaqing who relied on his looks to deceive girls, they would never believe it. But who was this man? He had never heard of a wealthy family with the surname Fang in Huaqing. There were no wealthy families with the surname Fang in the capital either. Fu Lei's expression changed drastically as if he had heard something inconceivable. Very quickly, his expression returned to normal. He looked at Fang Yen with a smile and said, so it's young Master Fang. I've heard so much about you. Your name is like thunder in my ears. I didn't expect that we would be like a flood crashing into a Dragon King's temple today. One family clashed with another family, young Master Fang, this is a misunderstanding. Today, I heard the two young friends from the Arasima group perform and was shocked. Dachang saw that I was delighted and wanted to bridge the gap between us to help me fulfill a wish. We wanted to be friends with these two young friends, but because the attitude of our subordinates was too bad, it caused unnecessary conflicts and misunderstandings. Fu Lei glanced at Liang Dachang and said, Dachang is a bit too impatient, but he's forthright and loyal. He's not a bad person deep down. Young Master Fang has already punished them. Why don't we just forget about today's matter? We'll prepare a generous gift to apologize to the two young friends from the Arasima group. How about that? Fang Yen looked at Fu Lei and asked, you know me? I often heard about the interesting stories between young Master Fang and young Master Jiang even when I was far away in a cold and desolate place. I've always wanted to get to know a young talent like young Master Fang if I had the chance. I didn't expect the hero to be right in front of me, but I didn't recognize him. What a sin. Fu Lei's words were very vague. But the meaning behind his words was very clear. Since you've already offended young Master Jiang Junling, don't provoke us anymore. It would be good if everyone was friendly. When we teased girls, you pretended not to see it. When you hooked up with innocent women, we turned a blind eye. Isn't this the way people live in the circle? Hearing that I even dared to slap Jiang Junling, are you starting to feel guilty? Fang Yan asked with a smile. And then regret provoking my friend? Young Master Fang, Fu Lei felt that Fang Yan didn't know how to speak properly. How could he say such a thing on the spot? Luckily, I don't know you. Fang Yan said happily. Oh, it's so lively here. A bright and heroic voice sounded from the door. Fang Yan turned around and saw Lan Shanggu pushing Lu Shu, who was in a wheelchair, into the locker room. Fu Lei saw Lan Shanggu and shouted happily, Brother Lan, you're here too. If I knew earlier, we could have arranged to meet in the same room to drink wine and listen to classical music. It's a great fun. Lan Shanggu ignored Fu Lei and looked at Fang Yan with a smile. He said, I don't have anything to do tonight, so I invited Cripple Lu to watch the classical music concert from Arasima. Lan Shanggu looked at Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin and said with a smile, after all, the two beauties from Arasima are also from Huacheng. It's natural for us to support people from our hometown. Jiang Qin, Yuan Lin, I'm your diehard fan. You have to give me an autograph later. Otherwise, I'll leave Cripple Lu outside the changing room and not let you out. You won't be so cruel to a disabled person, right? Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at each other. They didn't understand the relationship between Lan Shanggu, Fang Yan, and Fu Lei. They just smiled and didn't say anything. Lu Shu's face turned slightly cold. He said, Lan Shanggu, one day, I'll make you shut your stinky mouth completely. Cripple Lu, do you want to kill me now? It's not easy for you to kill me, but I can kill you easily, Lan Shanggu said carelessly. He didn't take Lu Shu's threats seriously at all. Lan Shanggu walked in front of Fang Yan and stood shoulder to shoulder with him. He stared at Fu Lei and the others with the same hatred. He asked, what happened here? Which blind guy offended our young Master Fang again? It's a misunderstanding. It's really a misunderstanding. Brother Lan, please explain to young Master Fang that we just want to make friends with the two girls from Arasima. We don't have any other intentions. Fu Lei didn't expect Lan Shanggu to also come to this concert. But this was also good. The Fu clan and the Lan clan had some relationship, and the two clans often had business dealings. With a heavyweight like Lan Shanggu helping to slow things down, presumably Fang Yan wouldn't dare to kill them again. As for Liang Dachang, this kind of guy with bad character, he should just treat this beating as a lesson. Why did he talk to me about Arasima for no reason? Now that he brought trouble to my doorstep, I'm already being kind by not letting him bear the responsibility. Lan Shanggu sneered and said, Fu Lei, do you think I don't know your tricks? If you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're wrong, you have to admit it. It's one thing to do something wrong, but you still have to bear the responsibility after doing something wrong. If you should apologize, you have to apologize. If you should compensate for the loss, you have to compensate for the loss. Lan Shanggu naturally had the intention of interceding on Fu Lei's behalf. He wanted Fu Lei to apologize and compensate for the loss. These were just some insignificant punishments. Because he knew very well that if Fang Yan took action, things naturally wouldn't be so easy to solve. Lu Shu sneered and said, using young Master Fang's matter as a gift, Lan Shanggu, you really have a good plan. Fang Yan glanced at Lan Shanggu and said, no. Things shouldn't be handled like this. Fang Yan pointed at Fu Lei and said, just now in the VIP room on the second floor, he and Liang Dachang were discussing how to get the two girls from Arasima. I'm too embarrassed to repeat those obscene words. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at each other, and their faces were smeared with a layer of red. They knew what those obscene words Fang Yan said were referring to. Although they had the protection of Xia Tian, they rarely encountered situations where they were bullied. But occasionally, some words that reached their ears would still make them extremely angry. But this was the ecology of the entertainment circle. Even Xia Tian couldn't change the rules and purify the environment. He could only ensure that the people around him wouldn't be assimilated. I had already punished them at that time. I didn't expect them to be so daring that they forcefully ran into the room after the concert to snatch people. Fang Yan pointed at Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin and said, "Unfortunately, the Mr. Fang they were talking about on stage was me. They were both my students." "Young master, what do you mean?" The smile on Lan Shanggu's face disappeared. He looked at Fang Yan with a serious expression and asked aloud. Fang Yan walked towards Fu Lei step by step, and Fu Lei's body began to retreat. He had seen Fang Yan's skills and knew that he was far from being his opponent. He originally thought that those young masters who had been fawning over him would stand up and help him, but even when he retreated to the corner of the wall, he didn't touch anyone's body. Those guys had already retreated to the sides. Fang Yan grabbed Fu Lei's neck and lifted his body up from the ground. Fu Lei's face turned purple and his body couldn't move at all. Clang! Fang Yan's knee ruthlessly attacked Fu Lei's lower abdomen. Fu Lei's body curled up like a shrimp. His face turned black and purple, as if he had serious food poisoning. His mouth couldn't speak, but a large amount of food and liquid flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Fang Yan was worried that the compound would flow to the back of his hand, so he threw Fu Lei's body on the ground with some disdain. Then, he kicked over and over again. Bang! 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 Every time Fang Yan kicked out, Fu Lei would scream along with it. His body curled up on the ground, his hands tightly hugging the important parts of his head. He looked even more miserable than a beggar. Every time Fang Yan kicked out, the bodies of the young masters of Hua City who were watching from the side would also tremble. The person lying on the ground was the young master Fu Lei, whom they had been trying their best to fawn over. In the blink of an eye, he was being kicked and beaten like a dog. This Mr. Fang, what kind of pervert was he? Did he know the rules? Did he have any dignity? Too unfriendly. Bang! 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 Fang Yan kicked more than 10 times until Fu Lei lay on the ground motionless. Then, he turned to look at Lan Shanggu and asked, "What did you say just now? What is the relationship between you, friends?" Chapter 493. What is the relationship between you two? Friends? He saw him make a move, saw him choke, saw him kick a person to the point where it was unclear whether he was dead or alive. Lan Shanggu suddenly felt a strong sense of crisis. This was Fang Yan's response to his forceful intercession and his expression of dissatisfaction with his attitude. Fang Yan was dissatisfied with himself because he had stretched his hand too far. Was it just because of this? It probably wasn't that simple, right? Or did he also know about the flirting between the Lan family and the Jiang family? Lan Shanggu felt bitter. At the Blue Mountain Club, Jiang Junling said in front of him that he was going to visit the Lan family's old master. Jiang Junling didn't break his promise and went to visit the Lan family with generous gifts the next afternoon. The Lan family also secretly gave Jiang Junling the highest treatment. The Lan family's old master, who hadn't seen guests for a long time, personally accompanied Jiang Junling to drink tea in the study. Because of Lan Shanggu's special status in the Lan family, he was lucky enough to stay in the study and become one of the companions. Jiang Junling once again proposed the idea of joining forces with the Lan family to invest in Longtu Group. The Lan family's old master agreed after a moment of hesitation. Both sides would invest $1 billion and work together to expand Longtu Group. Then, they would share the fruits of victory. In Longtu Group, the Lan family would be one of the 3 major shareholders. With the Jiang family, Jiang Zhulu would exercise the same important rights. Jiang Junling expressed his admiration for the Lan family's foresight and thanked the old master for encouraging and guiding the young people. Both sides had a good talk. Jiang Junling left after dinner and Lan Shanggu immediately entered the old master's study to talk to his secret agent. Lan Shanggu strongly requested the old master to give up the cooperation plan with the Jiang family and work hard to play the role of a pure seller of Chaoyan technology. The old master had a different view on this. He thought that the Lan family shouldn't put all their eggs in the same basket. If the Lon family invested in Longtu Group, they would become one of the 3 major shareholders of Longtu Group, a new energy industry. With the vigorous development of the energy industry, the Lon family would become the decision-maker in this field and not just the errand slave of a certain family. Yes, the Lon family was just a lower-tier seller of Chaoyan technology. Chaoyan technology could use you, but they could also kick you away. The old master's worries were not without reason. What's more, if Longtu Group was really successful, it could also create pressure on Chaoyan technology, increasing their own weight in front of Chaoyan technology and Fong Yen and Lu Chaoga. Most importantly, any business that could make money was a good business, so why not? What the old master said made sense, but Lan Shanggu knew that things weren't that simple. With Fong Yen and Lu Chaoga's personalities, how could they possibly allow the Lan clan to be two-timing? Lan Shanggu and the old master had conflicting views and a fierce conflict broke out between them. Lan Shanggu cared about the reactions of Fong Yen and Lu Chaoga, but the old master cared more about the support of the Jiang family. At that time, the old master sat on the armchair, looked at Lan Shanggu and said something meaningful: no matter how hard Fong Yen works, no matter how Chaoyan develops, the Fong family can't be the Jiang family, and Chaoyan technology can't be the Jiang family's business. Yes, the old master didn't think that the young and energetic Fong Yen had any chance of winning against the 1,000-year-old Jiang family. This had nothing to do with ability or talent. He just lost in terms of time. Lan Shanggu was the future heir of the Lan family, but his future had yet to come. The importance of Lan Shanggu in the Lan family was decided by the old master, and what the old master decided was what the Lan family decided. Therefore, the matter of the Lan family and the Jiang family jointly investing in Longtu Group was being discussed and carried out in secret. Now, had Fong Yen raised a big stick to beat them up? During the process of Fong Yen beating up young Master Fu Lei, the entire changing room was silent. Other than heavy breathing, no one said anything or made a sound to stop it. Lu Shu sat steadily on the wheelchair, a cold smile on his lips. No one knew if he was mocking Fu Lei's stupidity or the cleverness of this matter. The other young masters' faces were as white as paper, and the timid one's legs were trembling. Even standing straight was a difficult task for them. Every time Fong Yen kicked Wang Ku, the manager of Planet Blue, his heart would tremble. When Fong Yen was done, her body stopped trembling. She had been in the entertainment industry for many years and had seen all kinds of people. But she had never met a man with a personality like Fong Yen. This kind of person had a vicious mouth and was ruthless. He didn't know how to compromise, didn't know how to be mellow, and wasn't suitable to be in the industry. It was easy to offend people. Wang Ku turned to look at Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, wanting to persuade them to stay away from this dangerous man. But when she saw Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's excited faces and stars in their eyes, she gave up the idea. They probably wouldn't listen to any bad things she said about Fong Yen. Aren't they your friends? Fong Yen looked at Lan Shanyu and asked again. What was the point of asking such a question after the fight? Or rather, it had a deeper meaning than asking such a question before the fight. Lan Shanyu laughed and said, to be honest, young master, the Fu family is our business partner. The Fu family has been operating in Mo Bay for a long time, and they have quite a few mines with good quality. The Lan family imports ores from the Fu family. Because of this, Fu Lei and I have known each other since we were young. But we have been too busy these years, so we haven't seen each other much. I didn't expect him to do such an animal thing tonight. If not for young master's timely discovery, the 2 classical music masters of our City of Flowers would have been destroyed by him. Such an idiot. Even if young master taught him a lesson, it wouldn't be enough. When I go back, I will definitely call Uncle Fu and ask him to teach Fu Lei a lesson. Fong Yen looked at Lan Shanyu and said gently, Fu Lei is your good friend, it's natural for you to speak up for him. If you don't help your good friend when he is in trouble, then I will start to suspect you of being a heartless person. But you didn't speak up at the right time. He just made a mistake and came to cause trouble for my 2 friends. If I let him go because of one sentence from you and let this matter go, isn't the cost of his mistake too low? Just because he knows Lan Shanyu, he can do whatever he wants. If he knows Lan Shanyu in every city, does that mean he can do this in every city? I didn't think it through and let young master laugh at me. Lan Shanyu apologized sincerely. That's a little harsh, Fang Yan said with a smile. I will teach him a lesson and let him receive the punishment he deserves. I will let him know that if he does bad things, he must be prepared to be caught. Lan Shanyu's heart skipped a beat. Fang Yan had already said it so clearly. If he still didn't understand what he meant, then he wouldn't deserve to be one of the 4 talents of watching. A prodigal who repents is more valuable than gold. All mistakes can be corrected, Lan Shanyu said in a low voice. I believe Fu Lei already understands this. Not only did Fu Lei understand, but he also understood. Since Fang Yan didn't say it clearly, it meant that he didn't want to fall out with the Lan family. This way, he could still put in some effort in the middle. If Fang Yan directly asked why the Lan family wanted to cooperate with the Jiang family, it meant that there was no turning back. I also hope that he can understand. Fang Yan nodded, then said self-deprecatingly, after being a teacher for a year, I've developed a bad habit of educating people. That's not good. How is this educating people? Young master's words are priceless advice. Those without connections won't have the chance to learn, Lan Shanyu said fawningly. Those who understand will think it's priceless advice. Those who don't understand will think it's full of nonsense. Fang Yan pointed at Fu Lei and said, all right, since Shanyu has spoken, I have to give you face. I won't break his arms and legs, but I won't destroy his life. Take him away. Thank you, young master, Lan Shanyu said with a smile. He waved his hand, and 2 black-clothed men immediately rushed over from behind, picked up Fu Lei from the ground, and walked out. Lan Shanyu looked at Fang Yan and said, young master, I won't disturb you anymore. Go do what you need to do, Fang Yan said with a smile. Lan Shanyu was still in the mood to greet Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin and said, Jiang Qin, Yuan Lin, you guys owe me an autograph. I'll remember this, I won't forget, Yuan Lin said with a smile. Lan Shanyu walked in front of the willow tree and said, Cripple, are you coming with me? The willow tree chuckled and said, the exciting show is over, what's the point of staying? Go, of course I'm leaving. Thus, Lan Shanyu pushed the willow tree and left. The other young masters supported Liang Dachang and followed closely behind. Everyone was very careful when passing by Fang Yan, afraid that they would accidentally anger Fang Yan, and then they would become Liang Dachang or Fu Lei. This guy was really ruthless. When everyone had left, Wang Ku looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, Mr. Fang, thank you for helping us out. If you hadn't appeared in time, I really don't know what would have happened. You see, it's already very late, and Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin have been busy for the whole night. Why don't we let these 2 girls go back to the hotel to rest? Fang Yan felt that what Wang Ku said was very reasonable and was about to nod in agreement when Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin ran over and hugged Fang Yan's arms. Jiang Qin looked at Fang Yan with a sweet smile and said, Mr. Fang, I'm not tired. I'll go with you wherever you go. Yuan Lin also said with a smile, I really want to eat watching seafood barbecue. Why don't we treat Mr. Fang to something? Wang Ku's face was full of helplessness and said, then I'll arrange for the driver to send you there. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.